Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, liking and subscribing would be greatly appreciated. If you have any recommendation for novels, comment below. American Comics, Super Omega Mutant. Chapter 41 Bullseye. If Jinbing just looked at Roy seriously before, now, after hearing Roy's words, a strong murderous intent immediately surged in his heart. After he became the underworld king of New York, it had been a long time since anyone dared to threaten him in such a direct way. In other words, he is the one who usually threatens others. Although a strong killing intent had already emerged in his heart, Jinbing controlled his expression very well and said to Roy, "I will also give you a minute to think about it. Be my subordinate, and I can pretend that what happened last night never happened." Compared to Jinbing's previous behavior, he is now considered very polite. If the person who just spoke to him was not Roy, but someone else, Kingpin would immediately let the other person see what a fist as big as a casserole looks like. From his point of view, he did not care about Roy's disrespect and gave him a chance to make amends, which was considered to be giving Roy a lot of face. Roy was not surprised that Jin did not immediately agree to his conditions. In other words, he would feel something was wrong if Jinbing agreed to his conditions immediately. No matter what, Kingpin is the underworld king of New York and even the entire America. It is said that criminal activities involving him account for almost 40% of all crimes in the United States. If that's your answer, then there's no. Before he could finish his words, Roy tilted his head to the right, avoiding the speeding bullet. Only after the bullet flew past his head did the sound of the gunshot and the bullet shattering the glass reach his and Jinbing's ears. Missed? After seeing Roy avoid Bullseye's sniper attack with ease, Kingpin, who was sitting opposite Roy, and Bullseye, who was on the rooftop of the opposite building, showed surprised expressions at the same time. They knew that Roy was a superhuman and that he had considerable strength. But they never expected that Roy's reaction was so fast that he could dodge the bullet. Unlike Kingpin and Bullseye, who were surprised, Roy's expression was still extremely calm. He said slowly, "Knowing that I was coming, he immediately arranged for Bullseye to go to the opposite building with a sniper rifle and told him to be ready to shoot me at any time. The arrangement was pretty good, but it underestimated me a little." Although he didn't see the person who fired the gun, Roy was sure that the person who fired the gun was Bullseye. Because Bullseye is the best assassin and sharpshooter under Kingpin. After saying that, without waiting for Kingpin to answer, Roy grabbed the desk in front of him with his right hand. Jinbing's desk is very large, 2 or 3 meters long, and is a solid wood desk made of precious wood, and is incredibly heavy. But to Roy, who possesses superpowers, this desk is as light as a magazine. With just a casual flip of his hand, the heavy office desk flew several meters away and fell heavily to the ground with a dull crash. At the same time as the desk was flipped over, Roy, who was sitting opposite Kingpin, came up to Kingpin like a ghost and raised his hand to punch him. As a world-class fighting master, Kingpin's reaction is not slow. Even so, there is still a huge gap between him and Roy. Bang! Without any suspense, Roy's fist hit Kingpin's chest like a cannonball, knocking him away. Kingpin, who is 2 meters tall and weighs 204 kilograms, with more than 90% of his body made up of muscles, crashed into the bookcase behind him, smashing it into pieces and leaving a mess. Fortunately, there was a wall behind the bookcase, so he didn't fly too far. Kingpin's strength is actually not that bad. His strong body gives him amazing strength, allowing him to break a wall with his bare hands. In the comics, he, like the Punisher, who is called a level 10 agent by Nick Fury, possesses the highest level of ordinary human combat power. As soon as Kingpin smashed the bookcase behind him, Roy grabbed his neck with his left hand and pressed him against the wall, his eyes shining like rubies. "I haven't been in a good mood these days, so I'll give you one last chance. If you dare to say no, I will shoot your head off immediately." Roy looked at Jinbing with a cold expression and spoke quickly. After seeing his eyes sparkle like rubies, Kingpin quickly gave his answer. I will give you all the information I know about Hydra. Although speaking softly was not in line with his current identity, between face and life, Jin Bing decisively chose life. Anyone who can become a gang leader is not stupid. This is especially true for those who can become the emperor of the underworld. Only those low-level gangsters would consider face more important than life. After hearing Jin Bing's answer, Roy loosened his left hand, took out a note from the system space, and put it into Jin Bing's chest pocket. Then, under Jin Bing's gaze, he left the office calmly and completely disappeared from Jin Bing's sight. As soon as Roy left the office, Bullseye's voice rang in Kingpin's ears. Do you need me to follow him and kill him? Bullseye's words came through the tiny wireless headset. Need not. Jin Bing replied immediately. He first took out the miniature wireless earphones that were inserted into his ears, then took out the note that Roy had stuffed into his shirt pocket and took a look at the contents. There was very little content on the note, just an email address. After leaving Fisk Building, Roy did not go anywhere else but drove towards his residence. Before he returned to his residence, he received an email from Jin Bing. After parking the car on the side of the road, he quickly browsed the contents of the email. Like the note he left behind, there wasn't much in the email Jin Bing sent, just a dozen names and addresses. Roy didn't recognize any of the names Kingpin sent. As for addresses, except for 2 in New York, the others are in other states. After reading the emails, he started the car and continued back to his residence. At the same time, Brooklyn. Apartments organized by Rising Tide. John, with messy brown hair, came to Sky, who had beautiful black hair and black eyes, holding a cup of freshly bought coffee. After seeing John standing in front of him with a cup of coffee, Sky took off his headphones and said with a frown, "You look very obscene right now, like a pervert. If you have something to say, just say it. Those 3 cell phones last night." Sky interrupted John before he could finish his sentence. "When did your level drop to the point where you can't even find out the real user behind a mobile phone number?" Sky said quickly. "It's not that our level has dropped, it's that the people who used those 3 numbers are not simple at all. Their phones are harder to hack into than those of FBI and CIA agents. They have very strict firewalls. You're the best hacker I know. If you can't do it, I don't think there's any hacker in the world who can hack into their phones." John looked at Sky with a flattering expression, and while praising Sky, he put the coffee in front of Sky. "Harder to hack than the phones of FBI and CIA agents?" After hearing John's words, Sky immediately became interested. Whether it is her or other hackers, they all have an instinctive interest in difficult firewalls. "Are you telling the truth?" Sky asked John. "Of course it's true. Otherwise, with the level of the 3 of us, it would only take half an hour at most to hack into their phones. It's been a long time, and we haven't even been able to break through the outermost firewall," John said seriously. Sky didn't answer John immediately, but picked up the coffee in front of her and took a sip. After more than 10 seconds, she said, "If I succeed in hacking, half of the money will be mine." "No problem. Don't just say half. I'll give you all of it. I am now very curious about who are the people using these 3 numbers and how they can use such a high-level firewall," John said immediately without any hesitation. "Give me the number." Sky put down the coffee in her hand and said to John. As soon as she finished speaking, John told her the 3 numbers. End of this chapter. Chapter 42 The Invincible Man. Chapter 42 The Invincible Man. Neither Sky nor John knew at this time what consequences their invasion would bring. After getting the mobile phone number provided by John, Sky started to hack into one of the phones without any hesitation. Time passes little by little. It took her less than 10 minutes to break through the outermost firewall. Although she has not been able to completely hack into the other party's mobile phone, her efficiency is much higher than that of John and the other 2. You 3 have indeed dropped in level. Try smoking less marijuana. If you keep smoking, you three will become mortals sooner or later. Sky complained to John. In America, many young people have the habit of smoking marijuana. John 3 is one of them. Although marijuana has not yet been fully legalized in the United States and only a few states have enacted laws legalizing marijuana, many young Americans use marijuana as a means of entertainment like tobacco and alcohol. Not only that, according to America's consistent style, national legalization is only a matter of time. By then, there will be another beautiful landscape on the streets of America. After hearing Sky's complaints, John didn't say anything, but just laughed awkwardly twice. The Queen. After driving for more than half an hour, Roy finally returned to his residence and drove the car into the garage. He did not get off the car immediately, but took out the tablet computer he used last night from the system space and logged into the dark web forum of the New York underworld. Without any hesitation, he immediately sent a message to the hacker from the Rising Tide organization with whom he had chatted last night. Transaction cancelled. Without waiting for the other party to reply, he exited the chat room and forum and threw the tablet back into the system space. Now that we have obtained Hydra's intelligence from Kingpin, there is no need to continue entrusting the Rising Tide organization. Although he had paid a deposit of $1 million in advance, this amount of money was nothing to him. Inside the apartment organized by the High Tide, John, who was standing next to Sky, took out his cell phone. After seeing the message in the chat room, his expression became a little strange. Well, the other party cancelled the transaction, John said to Sky, who was trying to break through the firewall. What? Sky turned to look at John. John said nothing more and pointed his phone screen at Sky. After seeing the words "deal cancelled," Sky frowned slightly. He changed his mind, or he thinks our efficiency is too slow. It's only been more than 10 hours, and he doesn't want the $1 million deposit. Sky said, frowning. Who knows? Maybe he's just a rich second generation who has too much money to spend and comes to the dark web for fun. John said casually. Unlike Sky, he didn't really care if the deal was cancelled. In other words, it doesn't matter if the deal is cancelled, since they have already received the deposit. You really should smoke less marijuana and use your brain. How could a second-generation rich man with nothing to do give out 3 mobile phone numbers with super high-level firewalls? Sky rolled her eyes at John and spoke quickly. No matter who he is, it has nothing to do with us. Anyway, we have already received the deposit. Well, the other party cancelled the transaction. Do I still need to give you half of the deposit? John asked Sky. What do you say? Sky asked back. Okay, I'll give you half. I'll transfer it to you right away. After that, John prepared to log into the online bank and transfer $500,000 to Sky. The money can be transferred later. Please give me access to the chat room first. Sky said quickly. Why do you want access to the chat room? You don't want to investigate him, do you? It's against the rules to investigate your employer. John looked at Sky warily. Sky didn't say anything, but just stared at John with her big black eyes. Okay, I'm afraid of you. If anything unexpected happens, I won't care about you. While reminding Sky, John used his mobile phone to give Sky access to the chat room. Time flies. 3 months passed before I knew it. With the information provided by Jin, Roy wasted no time and immediately began his revenge on Hydra. Although he was alone and could not attack all the addresses provided by Jin at the same time, this did not affect his revenge at all. Using the ability to fly granted by the Angel card, he has flown across the 48 states of the continental United States in the past month, slaughtering all the Hydra members he encounters. At the beginning, Jin Bing only provided more than a dozen addresses and names. As the saying goes, when you dig up a radish, you bring out the mud. With these dozen addresses and names as breakthroughs, he dug up more and more intelligence about Hydra. When he officially began his revenge operation and destroyed Hydra's bases in the United States one by one, Hydra finally confirmed that he was not joking but serious. Although Hydra also recruited and brainwashed some superhumans to form a superhuman army. But compared to Roy, their superhuman soldiers are no different from ordinary people. These superhuman soldiers of Hydra have proved one thing with facts. That is the gap between superhumans, sometimes even greater than the gap between adults and infants. When Roy began his revenge, S.H.I.E.L.D. was also not idle and stepped up its efforts to investigate and capture Hydra. It's not that Hydra didn't think about fighting back. But unfortunately, their counterattack was just a tickle to Roy. What's more troublesome is that after killing his original body's parents, Roy became invincible in a sense. Both parents are dead. All the other relatives are at the University of Tokyo, across the Pacific Ocean. As for her friends, not to mention that the only people who could be considered Roy's friends now were Mary Jane and Gwen. Even though he has a lot of friends, these people cannot become his weaknesses. He couldn't even threaten his parents' lives, let alone other people's lives. If there was a chance to do it again, Hydra would never rashly capture the original body's parents, let alone kill them in front of Roy. But unfortunately, there is no medicine for regret in the world. Inside a factory in the suburbs of Los Angeles, Roy, who was equipped with 5 cards, namely SR Wolverine, Special Spider-Man, SR Cyclops, R Ghost, and R Agent Zero, went on a killing spree in the factory. At this time, he did not release the adamantium bone claws, nor did he choose close combat. Instead, he took 2 rifles snatched from the Hydra soldiers and reaped their lives as accurately as the god of death. In the past 3 months, Roy has drawn cards 3 times, and respectively obtained 3 cards, R Agent Zero, R Ghost, and SR Fireman. The superpowers granted by these 3 cards were similar to what he remembered. The R Agent Zero card gives him extremely accurate shooting skills and the ability to absorb kinetic energy within a certain range. The absorbed kinetic energy can be converted into acidic enzymes and secreted from the fingertips to inhibit the opponent's regeneration and self-healing, causing the wound to continue to worsen, or convert the absorbed kinetic energy into super strength that is 10 times stronger than that of a normal person. R the Ghost card grants him the superpower of teleportation. The only drawback is that the teleportation distance is not long, only about 500 meters at most. As for the SR Fireman card, it gives him the ability to control fire. The disadvantage is that he can only control it, not create or generate fire. In addition, even if the flame is enhanced by superpowers, the temperature is not particularly high, only about 1 or 2,000 degrees. Although they were holding rifles, in Roy's hands, these 2 rifles were no different from sniper rifles. When he got the 2 rifles, he adjusted the shooting mode to single shot. Using the precise shooting skills granted by the Agent Zero card and the teleportation superpower granted by the Ghost card, Roy kept adjusting his position and shot the Hydra soldiers in the head one by one. The continuous gunshots and explosions not only broke the tranquility of the night, but also made the huge factory seem particularly lively. End of this chapter. Chapter 43 Secret Poker Friend. Chapter 43 Secret Poker Friend. Outside the factory, there were 3 Chevrolet SUVs with SHIELD logos on them and 5 armored vehicles parked there. Although a lot of vehicles were sent, there were only a few fighters sent by S.H.I.E.L.D. Except for a few people like Black Widow and Agent Coulson who lead the team, the others are not combatants. Wearing a black tight combat suit that perfectly shows off her graceful curves, the Black Widow stood at the front of the convoy, looking at the factory in front of her with a calm face. As for Agent Coulson, who was wearing a black suit, he was assigning tasks to other non-combat personnel. A few minutes later, the gunfire and explosions inside the factory stopped abruptly. It was clear that the battle inside the factory was over. However, Black Widow and Agent Coulson did not immediately bring people into the factory. They wouldn't bring anyone in until Roy left the factory. After waiting for 5 or 6 minutes, Roy, without any blood on his body, appeared in the sight of Black Widow and others. To be precise, we saw Roy, who looked like an angel, flying out of the factory with a pair of white wings on his back. After torturing the last person in his own way, he replaced the Agent Zero card with the Angel card. When Black Widow and the others saw Roy, Roy also saw them. Although Black Widow and her group did not enter the factory, he knew they were coming shortly after the battle started. In the past 3 months, S.H.I.E.L.D. has sent many people to follow him to drink soup and do some follow-up and finishing work. No one will be left alive in the Hydra base he attacks. However, S.H.I.E.L.D. can still find out some things through the bodies of Hydra soldiers and the equipment in the base. Unlike Roy, who only knows how to obtain intelligence through torture, S.H.I.E.L.D. has many more ways to obtain intelligence. After all, S.H.I.E.L.D. is a professional intelligence agency. After keeping his eyes on Black Widow for a moment, Roy flapped the wings behind him and flew towards downtown Los Angeles under their gaze. Soon, he disappeared from the sight of Black Widow and the others. When he left, Coulson turned to the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents behind him and said, "Start taking action. Don't miss any possible clues." "Yes, sir." The S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, who were carrying various tools, responded in unison. Then, quickly enter the factory. When the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in charge of the on-site investigation entered the factory, Coulson said to Black Widow, "There shouldn't be any accidents tonight. Agent Romanoff, why don't you go back and rest first? I'll be here. Then I'll leave this place to you. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me." Black Widow replied. "It is good." Coulson nodded immediately. After hearing Coulson's answer, Black Widow said nothing more and drove away in a black Chevrolet SUV towards the city. A 5-star hotel in downtown Los Angeles. Roy arrived above the hotel without any hesitation and immediately used the teleportation superpower granted by the ghost card. In just a moment, he disappeared above the hotel and teleported to the living room of the presidential suite on the top floor of the hotel. After returning to the living room, he immediately took off the Angel card and loaded the King card. As the Angel card was removed, the huge wings behind him disappeared instantly, as if they had never appeared. After doing all this, he sat down on the sofa in the living room, took out a bottle of expensive whiskey from the system space, opened the bottle cap, took a big sip from the bottle, and thought about the next arrangements. In the past 3 months, he has destroyed dozens of Hydra's secret bases, and at least 8,000 Hydra members have died in his hands. Combined with those destroyed by S.H.I.E.L.D., the Hydra bases on the American mainland were almost uprooted. Even if there are 1 or 2 that slipped through the net, Hydra's losses during this period are extremely heavy. After thinking for a while, Roy decided to end the first stage of revenge here. After 3 busy months, it's time to take a break. Although Hydra's strength is not very strong, its secret bases are spread all over the world. Unless he does nothing next and spends all his time and energy on dealing with Hydra. Otherwise, it would be impossible to completely eradicate Hydra in a short period of time. Completely destroying Hydra remains his goal. But he was going to do the second stage differently. After making the decision, he stood up and walked towards the bathroom. Time passes little by little. After taking a comfortable hot bath for more than half an hour, he left the bathroom wrapped in a bath towel and went to the bedroom. There was no one in the bedroom, but as soon as he returned to the bedroom, the beast sense given by the Wolverine card made him smell a familiar scent. "Come in, there's no need to hide." Roy turned his head towards the bedroom door and spoke. As soon as he finished speaking, a graceful and sexy figure walked in from the living room and appeared in his sight. The person who entered the bedroom was none other than Black Widow, who was wearing a black tight combat suit. "I was very careful. How did you find out that I was here?" The Black Widow walked straight up to Roy and spoke softly in a charming and seductive tone. Roy did not answer Black Widow's question, and slowly said, "You come here without even changing your clothes, aren't you afraid that Nick Fury and the others will know that you come to my place?" "Why should I be afraid? I just work for S.H.I.E.L.D. I haven't sold myself to S.H.I.E.L.D. They have no right to interfere in my private life. Black Widow said nonchalantly. After saying that, without waiting for Roy to answer, she unzipped her shirt, revealing her fair and deep abyss to Roy. After seeing her actions, Roy didn't say anything else. Soon, the sound of intense card playing, which was not suitable for children, could be heard in the bedroom. The card game between Roy and Black Widow lasted for more than an hour before it came to an end. After the victory was decided, the Black Widow kissed Roy on the face with a satisfied expression, then stood up and walked towards the bathroom. Hearing the sound of water splashing in the bathroom, Roy didn't think too much and got up and went to the bathroom. Although his relationship with S.H.I.E.L.D. is still not good, his relationship with Black Widow has become much closer. Speaking of this, I have to talk about that night in Houston 2 months ago. That night, based on the intelligence he collected, he found Hydra's secret base in Houston. But unfortunately, he was a step too late. When he arrived at the scene, Black Widow had already led a team of special forces to fight with the Hydra soldiers in the base. I don't know whether S.H.I.E.L.D.'s intelligence was wrong or Black Widow underestimated the defense capabilities of the base. What happens next is simple. When Black Widow was about to die under the siege of Hydra soldiers, Roy rescued Black Widow. He also wondered at the time whether this was a deliberate arrangement by S.H.I.E.L.D. But after thinking about it, he felt that the possibility was not high. No one except him knew that he would attack Hydra's secret base in Houston that night. In addition, if he had acted a little later, Black Widow would have been beaten to a pulp by Hydra soldiers like the other Special Forces members, turning from a sexy and beautiful female spy into a pile of horrible minced meat. After that night, Black Widow became his secret poker partner. Noon the next day. Roy, who had been busy until late at night, slowly opened his eyes. He was the only one on the big and comfortable bed. As for the Black Widow, she left in the middle of the night. Although Black Widow looked indifferent on the surface, as if she was not worried at all that Nick Fury and the others knew that she and Roy had an intimate relationship. But in fact, she cares a lot about it. If nothing else, you could tell by the fact that she never stayed overnight. Roy had played cards with her many times. But no matter how late the fight went on, she would not stay overnight. After getting up and stretching his body, Roy went to the bathroom and started washing. After washing up, he took out clean clothes from the system space and put them on, left the suite, and walked towards the hotel restaurant. End of this chapter. Chapter 44 Blood Angel. Chapter 44 Blood Angel. Not long after, Roy arrived at the hotel restaurant. It was lunchtime and there were many hotel guests having dinner in the restaurant. Roy chose a seat by the window and asked the waiter for a bottle of good vintage red wine and some signature dishes. After ordering the food, he took out his phone from the system space. He first searched for today's headlines in Los Angeles. As he suspected, his massacre at a factory in suburban Los Angeles last night made headlines today. Blood Angels destroyed the Hydra base and eliminated over 300 Hydra terrorists. On Hydra's death night, the Blood Angels appeared in Los Angeles. Blood Angels' new victory, the Hydra base in Los Angeles was destroyed. Roy looked at the reports from major media in Los Angeles with a calm expression. 3 months ago, he had more than 10 different titles. Now, the only title left to him is Blood Angel. This is not because the title Blood Angel sounds better than other titles, but simply because the American people generally believe in God. After reading these reports, he searched for news about Spider-Woman. Although he would get calls from Mary Jane and Gwen from time to time, he hadn't seen them in over 2 months. Perhaps in order to stay in New York to fight crime, or perhaps it was the influence of fate. Gwen and Peter, who had excellent grades, did not apply to prestigious universities such as Harvard and MIT, but instead applied to Empire State University in New York. In a universe where Gwen isn't Spider-Man, they met at Empire State University. They were not the only ones who applied to Empire State University, Harry also applied. Although Harry's grades were average, it was not difficult for him to enter Empire State University. Unlike the University of Tokyo across the Pacific Ocean, most of the famous universities in the United States are private universities. Famous universities such as Harvard, MIT, Yale University, Columbia University, University of Pennsylvania, and Brown University are all private universities without exception. For students from ordinary families, if they want to attend these prestigious schools, they must have very good grades. For Harry, a rich second generation, he can go to any prestigious school he wants. Don't say that his grades are just average now. Even if he was mentally retarded, Norman Osborn could send him to these prestigious schools if he wanted. Unlike Blood Angel, which made headlines in Los Angeles, Spider-Woman did not make headlines in New York today. It was not Spider-Woman or Spider-Man who made the headlines in New York, but the Green Goblin. To be precise, the news is that the Green Devil attacked the World Carnival held in New York's Times Square yesterday, resulting in the deaths of a large number of upper-class people. Among them are members of the board of directors of the Osborn Group. Except for Norman Osborn, who did not attend the event, all other board members were killed without exception. Roy was not too surprised after seeing the news. 3 months ago, he saw a post in a dark web forum in the New York underworld that was suspected to be from the Osborn Group recruiting human experimenters. At that time, he was wondering whether the Osborn Group wanted to secretly test physical enhancement potions. Now it seems that he guessed right. After reading the news about the Green Devil attacking the World Carnival, he threw his phone back into the system space and waited patiently for his lunch. Not long after, the restaurant waiter brought up the appetizer of white sturgeon caviar and red wine. Roy first drank half a glass of red wine that cost more than $30,000 a bottle, and then tasted the beluga caviar in front of him. Appetizers are also called appetizers. There are cold appetizers and hot appetizers. The purpose is to stimulate appetite. The beluga caviar that Roy ordered now is considered a cold appetizer. He took a spoonful of the fish roe with a delicate silver spoon and put it into his mouth. He pressed the roof of his mouth lightly with his tongue to break the whole fish roe grains. The moment the fish roe is squeezed, the freshness of the seafood and the buttery aroma immediately spread out and filled the entire mouth. Although Roy personally prefers Chinese food, Western food is not completely useless and has some unique features. Some people like to taste caviar with cream, pancakes, soda crackers, toast, etc., but he prefers to eat it alone. Because only in this way can you experience the unique taste of the distinct fish roe particles breaking one after another due to being squeezed in the mouth. After tasting the appetizer of white sturgeon caviar, the next dishes were soup and side dishes. The soup was beef bouillon and the side dish was lobster and cheese sauce. Just as he finished tasting the lobster and cheese sauce and was about to start the main course, there was a burst of heated conversation in the restaurant. Problem occurs? Seeing the guests around him taking out their cell phones, Roy also frowned, took out his cell phone and opened Twitter. He didn't need to search. As soon as he opened the hot search, he saw a hot search that he had guessed long ago. Tony Stark has been kidnapped. It finally happened. After knowing that he had traveled to the Marvel Universe and that Tony Stark had not yet become Iron Man, he guessed that this day would come sooner or later. Although this is not the movie universe, being kidnapped is Tony Stark's fate. Whether in the movie universe, in the comics, or in a parallel universe, this is Tony Stark's inevitable fate. Because only after experiencing this incident could he transform from a rebellious playboy into Iron Man. After quickly browsing the trending searches, Roy discovered that Tony Stark was not kidnapped today, but a week ago. The reason why it was revealed today is simply because the military can no longer hide it. Similar to the movie universe, Tony Stark in this universe was also kidnapped in Afghanistan. The only difference is that the military has identified the terrorists who kidnapped Tony Stark as members of the Ten Rings. Just a few minutes ago, the military held a press conference, announced the details of Tony Stark's kidnapping, and announced that they would rescue the kidnapped Tony Stark within 72 hours. Even so, Stark Industries' stock price suffered a panic-stricken plunge. Below the hot search about Tony Stark being kidnapped is the hot search about Stark Industries' stock plummeting 17%. Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin killed the board members at the World Carnival. Tony Stark was kidnapped by the Ten Rings while in Afghanistan promoting the Jericho missile. After seeing these two pieces of news, a guess immediately popped up in Roy's mind. Judging from the current situation, this universe is likely to be a fusion universe that combines Marvel movies and Spider-Man movies. Fortunately, there are no mutants and Fantastic Four in this world. Otherwise, there will be plots from the Mutants movie and the Fantastic Four movie. After reading the content of the military press conference, Roy threw the phone back into the system space. He wasn't very interested in either the Green Devil or the Ten Rings. As long as they don't bother him, he won't have nothing better to do than to cause trouble for them. Not long after throwing the phone back into the system space, the waiter brought the main course. Roy didn't hesitate at all and immediately tasted the beef Wellington in front of him. 10800 Malibu Harbor. Tony Stark's clifftop mansion. Living room. Little Chilly, wearing a white women's suit, walked back and forth in the living room. Unlike everyone else, she knew about Tony's kidnapping on the first day. Although the military spokesperson had just said at the press conference that Tony Stark would be rescued within 72 hours, she had no confidence in the military at all. On the first day Tony was kidnapped, the military said they would rescue Tony within 24 hours. Now a week has passed, and apart from knowing that the terrorists who kidnapped Tony are from the Ten Rings, the military has made no progress. After walking back and forth in the living room for 5 or 6 minutes, Pepper suddenly said, "Jarvis, did Mr. Stark prepare a plan for what to do if he was kidnapped?" "I'm sorry, Miss Potts, but Mr. Stark didn't leave any plans regarding kidnapping." Jarvis' distinctive synthetic voice immediately sounded. "There's none?" Little Pepper immediately showed a disappointed expression. Just when she was about to say something else, Jarvis' voice rang out again. "Half a month ago, Mr. Stark talked to me about kidnapping." "What did he talk to you about?" Pepper asked immediately. "Mr. Stark was very interested in the Blood Angels some time ago and secretly investigated why the Blood Angels were so crazy about attacking Hydra. After investigation, we found that the Blood Angels' real name is Roy Chen, a student who just graduated from New York Midtown High School. The day before graduation, Hydra kidnapped his parents in London, and killed them on graduation day. From that day on, he began his revenge against Hydra." Jarvis replied quickly. "Blood Angel? Roy Chen?" Pepper immediately frowned and said slowly, "The news said that he just destroyed the Hydra base in the suburbs last night." "Yes. He's still in Los Angeles, at the Beverlyville Hotel downtown." Jarvis continued. After hearing that Roy was still in Los Angeles, an idea immediately popped into Pepper's mind. End of this chapter. Chapter 45 Fusion Cards. Chapter 45 Fusion Cards. The Believerwell Hotel. After enjoying lunch in the restaurant, Roy did not return to the presidential suite on the top floor, but left the hotel and wandered around downtown Los Angeles. In the past 3 months, he has been destroying Hydra bases in the United States and has not been enjoying life. The first phase of revenge was now complete, and he planned to give himself a break and enjoy the decadent life in America. After leaving the hotel, he first strolled around the city. Then, he drove the rented Porsche toward Hollywood, a suburb northwest of Los Angeles. As a world-renowned film center, Hollywood is home to top directors, screenwriters, and stuntmen from all over the world. Of course, it also brought together many world-renowned stars. Roy went to Hollywood for 2 reasons. One is to kill time. The other is to see if he can get one or more beautiful female celebrity poker friends in Hollywood. Just as he was driving his rented Porsche to Hollywood, a system message suddenly popped up in his sight. "System version updated. Update now?" Looking at the system information in front of him, Roy frowned slightly and parked the car on the side of the road. Without thinking too much, he immediately opened the system panel. Mutant Card Drawing System, new version available. Host, Roy. Loaded cards, SR Wolverine, SR Gambit, Special Spider-Man, SR Cyclops, R Ghost. Backup cards, SR Phantom Cat, SR Fireman, R Angel, R Agent 0. Number of draws, 0. System space, enabled. Except for a note new version obtained after the system name, there are no changes to the system panel. Although he didn't know what the so-called new version was, Roy didn't think much about it. He quickly made a decision and chose to update immediately. The next second after he made his choice, the system panel was closed. Instead, there is information about system updates. System is being updated. New version updated. Mutant Card Drawing System, v2.0, has been bound. When the system was upgraded to the so-called version 2.0, Roy immediately opened the system panel. Mutant Card Drawing System, v2.0. Host, Roy. Deck, SR Wolverine, SR Card King, SR Phantom, SR Pyro, SR Cyclops, R Ghost, R Angel, R Agent 0, Special Spider-Man. Number of normal card draws, 1, compensation for version update. Advanced card draw times, 0. Number of card fusions, 1, compensation for version update. Card fusion task, none. System space, enabled. When he opened the new version of the system panel, a lot of instructions for the new version of the system suddenly appeared in Roy's mind. The original loading cards and spare cards disappeared, replaced by a brand new deck function. As long as it is a card in the deck, he can use the card character's superpowers at any time. There is no need to replace it like before, which is much more convenient. Since there is no need to replace cards anymore, the system also makes adjustments to some cards that affect the host's appearance. For example, the Angel card. In the past, after loading the Angel card, he would immediately gain a pair of huge white wings. Now, he only grows wings when he uses the superpowers granted by the Angel card. When you finish using your superpowers, the wings disappear. Not only Angel cards, but other cards that affect the host's appearance have also made similar adjustments. For example, cards like Mystique, Red Devil, Nightcrawler, and Beast. If the update of the deck function only makes it more convenient for him to use the cards he owns, then the emergence of advanced card drawing, card fusion, and card fusion tasks gives him more possibilities. The first is the advanced card drawing function. The original card drawing has become a normal card drawing. Although the name has changed, the function remains the same, and you will get one more card draw per month. The number of advanced card draws will not increase over time and needs to be redeemed with 10 ordinary card draws. Unlike ordinary card draws, advanced card draws will only draw SSR level cards. To put it simply, it means using 10 normal card draws to guarantee one SSR card. As for which SSR card you can draw, it depends purely on luck, just like before. Card fusion and card fusion tasks, you can tell what they mean just by looking at the names. Using the card fusion function, you can fuse 2 or more cards that meet the fusion formula into one. The card fusion task is a system task that rewards the number of fusions. The more difficult the task, the more fusions you will be rewarded with. The system does not force him to accept the card fusion task. Whether or not to do it depends entirely on his mood. After browsing the version update information in his mind, Roy's eyes immediately fell on the cards in the deck. As his eyes swept over the card, some instructions appeared on the card that had not been there before. Although the system has updated the card fusion function, not all cards can be fused. Only cards that meet the fusion formula can be fused. After looking through all the cards he currently had, Roy showed a satisfied expression on his face. He now has only 9 cards in total, but 4 of them meet the fusion conditions. Wolverine, Spider-Man, Phantom, and Ghost can all be fused. SR Wolverine plus Special Spider-Man equals Fusion Wolverine Spider. SR Phantom Cat plus Special Spider-Man equals Fusion Phantom Spider. SR Phantom Cat plus R Ghost equals Fusion Phantom Cat. Which two should be combined? After some not very rigorous thinking, Roy quickly made a decision and planned to merge Wolverine and Spider-Man into Wolverine Spider. As for why Phantom Cat and Spider-Man did not merge into Phantom Spider, the reason is very simple. Because the Phantom Cat can also merge with the Ghost to become a Ghost Cat. Would you like to combine SR Wolverine and Special Spider-Man cards? Without any hesitation, Roy decisively chose yes. The next second after he made his choice, the Wolverine card and Spider-Man card in the deck disappeared. Fusion is complete. Obtain the Fusion Wolverine card. Deck update. Deck, SR Gambit, SR Phantom Cat, SR Pyro, SR Cyclops, R Ghost, R Angel, R Agent Zero, Fusion Wolverine. After obtaining the Fusion Wolverine Spider card, the description of the Fusion Wolverine Spider card immediately appeared in Roy's mind. In addition to the fusion superpowers that all fusion cards have, Wolverine Spider's other superpowers are similar to what he guessed, which is to enhance and fuse the superpowers of Wolverine and Spider-Man together, resulting in a result of 1 + 1 greater than 2. Wolf Spider Bone Spikes, the fusion ability of the Wolverine Spider, which grows 4 adamantium bone spikes on its back that are as flexible as its arms. After browsing the information about Wolverine Spider, Roy immediately closed the system panel. The next second, he decisively used the teleportation superpower granted by the Ghost card. He first teleported to the roof of a nearby building, and then continued to teleport towards the suburbs. After performing teleportation 30 or 40 times in a row, he arrived at a forest in the suburbs of Los Angeles. After looking around and confirming that there was no one else around, he did not hesitate at all and immediately used the Wolverine's Wolf Spider Bone Spur superpower. As the Wolf Spider's Bone Spurs superpower was activated, 4 silver-white adamantium bone spurs grew on his back, just like the spider arms of Spider-Man's Iron Man suit. The newly grown Wolf Spider Spur is only about 1 meter long, but this is not the maximum length of the Wolf Spider Spur. If necessary, Wolf Spider Spurs can grow to more than 10 meters in length. When adamantium bone spurs grew on his back, Roy immediately controlled these 4 bone spurs. Just as the system described, Wolf Spider bone spurs are as flexible to use as arms. If there is any problem, it is that when the Wolf Spider's spurs grow, they will pierce the clothes on the back. But it's not a big deal. Under Roy's control, the Wolf Spider's bone spurs on its back continued to stab the surrounding trees. Although the tip of the bone spur looks like a spear, there is no problem in using it to swing at the enemy. Feel good. After experiencing the Wolf Spider Bone Spur for more than 10 or 20 minutes, Roy put it back with a satisfied look on his face. Then, he took off the shirt that was pierced by the Wolf Spider's bone spurs, took out a new shirt from the system space and put it on. End of this chapter. Chapter 46 I Don't Lie to Children. Chapter 46 I Don't Lie to Children, please read. After changing his clothes, Roy used his teleportation ability and began to return to downtown Los Angeles. Not long after, he returned to the street where he parked his car and stood on the side of the road with a grim expression. The Porsche he had parked on the side of the road has now disappeared. In other words, during the 10 or 20 minutes he was away, his rented Porsche was stolen. Hey! Roy immediately cursed in his heart. He knew that car theft was a common crime in America. But he didn't expect that he had only been away for 10 or 20 minutes before his rented Porsche was stolen by some short-sighted guy. This is downtown Los Angeles, not a slum. After taking a deep breath and calming himself down, Roy turned around and looked around. Although his car was stolen, he had no intention of calling the police. Because even if you call the police, the Los Angeles police will most likely not be able to recover the stolen car. In the United States, whether it is big cities like Los Angeles and New York, or those unknown small cities, there are not many public cameras in the urban areas. It's not that the local police don't want to install it or don't have the money to do so, but that the residents of the United States do not support the police doing so. The reason is simple: American residents feel that the police have violated their privacy rights by installing a large number of cameras in the city. Glancing around, Roy discovered that a nearby convenience store had installed a surveillance camera at the door. Without any hesitation, he immediately walked towards the convenience store. A few minutes later, after using the King of Cards superpower psychedelic power to fool the clerk in the convenience store, he saw the convenience store's surveillance video and found the guy who stole his car in the video. He was a black man who was not very old and looked like he had just reached adulthood. After taking a photo of the surveillance video with his mobile phone, Roy left the convenience store and began his journey to find his car. Although he could choose to pay the money directly to the car rental company, he did not intend to do so. He has a lot of money now, but it's not a question of how much money, but that he can't swallow this humiliation. After leaving the convenience store, he took out a tablet computer from the system space, logged into the dark web, and found several well-known stolen car dealers in the underground trading forum in Los Angeles. After spending some money and confirming the lair of these stolen car dealers, he threw the tablet back into the system space and immediately used his teleportation superpower. More than an hour later, he saw his stolen Porsche in the lair of one of the stolen car dealers. When he came over, the stolen car dealer's men were dismantling his rented Porsche in the workshop and removing the GPS hidden inside the Porsche one by one. He didn't show any mercy to the young black man who stole his car and directly broke his hands and legs. As for the stolen car dealer, he was relatively better off, except that he broke both his hands. Only after the stolen car dealer's men completely restored the Porsche did he drive away from the dealer's lair and continue heading towards Hollywood. As a world-renowned film center, Hollywood does have many female stars. Perhaps because of his bad luck today, after walking around Hollywood, Roy did not find a female star that suited his taste. Although it was a bit of a pity, he didn't care too much and drove back to the Beverlyville Hotel. Night. The Black Widow, dressed in casual clothes, came to the hotel again and played an exciting card game with him. Noon the next day, Roy boarded a commercial airliner back to New York. He did not encounter any accidents when going through security check. Although the backup card setting was cancelled after the system upgrade, he can actively choose not to use Wolverine's superpowers to cancel the adamantium bones in his body. After passing security check, he once again used Wolverine's superpowers, allowing himself to regain the various superpowers granted by the Wolverine card. Los Angeles and New York are 4,000 kilometers apart. Even a direct flight would take 5 or 6 hours. Just as Roy was thinking about how to kill the boring 5 or 6 hours, a figure that he had never met before but was not unfamiliar to him appeared in his sight. Sky. The person who appeared in his sight was none other than Sky from the Rising Tide organization. Although he had never seen Sky before, Sky looked exactly as he remembered. If there is any difference, it is that Sky now looks like he has just reached adulthood. Sky was not alone at this time. He had 3 companions around him. After noticing Roy's eyes moving back and forth on him, Sky, who was heading to the economy class with his companions, immediately glared at him fiercely. Roy didn't take Sky's counterattack seriously and looked around. When all the passengers were on board, Roy called a stewardess over and said to her, "The passenger in 23G is my friend. Can I upgrade her cabin?" "Of course can." The stewardess replied quickly. "Okay, I'll upgrade her to the seat next to me. Please go and notify her. By the way, tell her that I just met her parents a few days ago," Roy said slowly. Although the first-class ticket was not cheap, it was nothing to him. As for why he asked the flight attendant to tell Sky that he had just met her parents a few days ago, it was simple, because only in this way would Sky come over. Otherwise, Sky might not be willing to accept an upgrade from a stranger. Okay, sir. After completing the upgrade procedures, the flight attendant walked towards the economy class. Not long after, the flight attendant took Sky back to the first-class cabin. After putting Sky's luggage away, the flight attendant turned to the restaurant and closed the door curtain. Don't look at me like that. I'm not a bad person, Roy said to Sky, who was sitting next to him and looking at him warily. Where have you seen my parents? How do you know I'm looking for them? Who are you? Sky immediately asked 3 questions in a row. My name is Roy Chen. 3 months ago, you received a commission of $5 million, but it was cancelled the next day. I am that client. I haven't seen them. I'm just saying this to get you to come over. As for why I know you are looking for them, keep it a secret for now. I will tell you later. Roy said slowly. What exactly do you want to do? Sky asked immediately. Nothing, I was just a little bored during the journey, so I just wanted to find something to kill time. How about this, in the next few minutes, you tell me something about yourself or some interesting hacker stories. In return, I will tell you your parents' names before you get off the plane. Roy looked at Sky calmly and spoke slowly. How do I know you're not just making up 2 random names to fool me? Sky's fair face, filled with collagen, was filled with distrust. I don't lie to children. Roy replied. You are the child. I am an adult. Sky immediately refuted Roy. P.S. Today's follow-up reading determines whether it can advance to the next round of recommendations. If it cannot advance, the maximum number of orders it can get on the shelves will be 300 or 400. Please read on, give monthly tickets, and recommend tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 47, Civil and Military Affairs. Chapter 47, Civil and Military Affairs. 6 hours later. John F. Kennedy International Airport, Queens, New York. Your father is Calvin Szabo and your mother is Jia Ying. As for their identities, you can check it yourself. Roy said to Sky, who was sitting next to him when the plane landed at JFK International Airport. Yeah, it's enough to know what they are called. I can find out the rest myself. Thank you. Sky looked at Roy with gratitude and replied quickly. If we say that at the beginning, her evaluation of Roy was a rich kid with bad intentions. Now, she describes Roy as a friendly and reliable new friend. The reason why her evaluation of Roy changed so significantly. On the one hand, Roy kept his promise and told her the names of her parents. On the other hand, in order to eliminate her vigilance, Roy quietly used the King of Cards superpower, psychedelic power, when chatting with her. Although the power of hallucination is not as comprehensive and powerful as telepathy, its effect in eliminating other people's vigilance and gaining their trust is not much weaker than telepathy. Like Gwen, Mary Jane, Peter, and others, Sky just turned 18 this year. Although she is young, she has extraordinary social experience. Not to mention the fact that I have lived in different foster families since I was a child. When she had acquired a certain degree of independent living and self-protection ability, she decisively escaped from her original foster family and began her own wandering life. After telling Sky the names of her parents, Roy took out his cell phone from the system space and exchanged contact information with Sky. If you run into any trouble in the future, you can call me. I am a very helpful person, especially when my friends ask for help. Roy said to Sky. After hearing his words, Sky quickly said, if you need a hacker's help in the future, you can come to me directly. I may not be able to help with other things, but I can do everything that other hackers can do, and do it better. After saying this, a proud expression appeared on Sky's still somewhat childish fair face. It is good. Roy nodded. After leaving the airport, he did not go anywhere else but took a taxi directly back to his residence. As soon as he returned to his residence, he saw Mary Jane, wearing a long dress, rehearsing the script in the living room with great passion. While he was busy destroying Hydra bases everywhere, Mary Jane, who stayed in New York, was also busy pursuing her dream. After a period of hard work, she successfully became a new actor in a Broadway theater. Perhaps it was because of her beautiful looks, or perhaps it was because she really had some talent, but in just 2 or 3 months, she went from being an inexperienced new actor to the lead actress of several musicals. If there is any shortcoming, it is that the musicals she starred in were not popular musicals, and the performances were not prime time in the evening. Although she is still a long way from becoming a famous musical actor, she is very satisfied now. Although she did not come from a professional background, it was already amazing that she could become the lead actress in several musicals in just 2 or 3 months. After seeing Roy, Mary Jane, who was rehearsing the script with great passion, was stunned for a moment, and a look of surprise appeared on her face. After a few seconds, when she was sure that she was not hallucinating, she threw the script in her hand away, quickly came to Roy, pressed her youthful, sexy body against him, and hugged Roy tightly. "Why didn't you call me in advance?" Mary Jane looked at Roy lovingly and asked softly. "Nothing, I just wanted to give you a surprise," Roy replied. "Have you had dinner yet?" Mary Jane continued to ask. Roy shook his head and said slowly, "No." "What do you want to eat?" "We have." Before Mary Jane could finish her words, Roy picked her up as a princess and said with a smile, "The dinner I wanted to eat is already in front of me." After hearing his words, Mary Jane's face immediately turned red with embarrassment. Without further ado, Roy carried Mary Jane straight to the bedroom. Soon, the sounds of intense and stimulating card playing that were not suitable for children could be heard in the bedroom. Maybe it was because she had become a musical actress, but Roy found that Mary Jane's voice had become much more beautiful, clear, melodious, soft, and moving. As the saying goes, a short absence is better than a new marriage. Roy and Mary Jane's card game lasted nearly 2 hours. Only when Mary Jane collapsed and begged for mercy and admitted defeat did Roy end the game with satisfaction. The next morning, Mary Jane, wearing Roy's white shirt and a missing bottom outfit that perfectly showed off her long, straight legs, was preparing breakfast in the kitchen. She hadn't prepared breakfast yet, and Roy, who had just finished washing up, came into the kitchen. After seeing Mary Jane's missing bottom outfit, he couldn't help but think of having a fierce card game with Mary Jane right away. However, he quickly suppressed the thought. In another hour, Mary Jane would report to the theater. Including the time spent on the road, there was not much time left for the two of them, less than half an hour. While he could have a quick game of cards with Mary Jane, he had no intention of doing so. "It would be better if you don't start the game. Now that we have started, of course we have to play to our heart's content. Breakfast will be ready soon, just wait a few more minutes." Mary Jane turned to Roy and said. "Don't worry, take your time," Roy replied. More than 20 minutes later, after finishing breakfast, Roy drove Mary Jane to the Broadway theater. In addition to taking Mary Jane to work, he also had to go to Manhattan for something. There is some congestion in New York during rush hour. Roy finally got Mary Jane to the theater when she was about to be late. After watching Mary Jane enter the theater, he drove towards Kingpin's Fisk building. In the past 3 months, Kingpin provided him with a lot of intelligence about Hydra. Although this was not Jinbing's voluntary action, the information provided by Jin still saved him a lot of effort. Half an hour later, an office on the top floor of the Fisk building. Roy met Kingpin, who was wearing an expensive, custom-made suit. When Kingpin's blonde secretary left the office, Roy didn't waste time and said directly, "I came to thank you. The information you provided helped me a lot. You definitely didn't come here just to thank me. Tell me, what do you want from me?" Kingpin replied quickly. "Since you've said that, I won't beat around the bush with you. I want to find someone." Roy looked at Kingpin calmly. "Who?" Kingpin asked, frowning. Although Roy hasn't said who he's looking for, it's clear that the person Roy is looking for is not an ordinary person. Otherwise, Roy would never come to him. The leader of the 10 Rings. Roy said to Kingpin. The leader of the 10 Rings? After hearing his words, Jin Bing immediately frowned. After a few seconds, he said, "You want to save Tony Stark too?" "No, I have no interest in rescuing Tony Stark. I just want to meet the leader of the 10 Rings," Roy replied. The board members of Osborn Corporation were killed by the Green Goblin at the World Carnival, and Tony Stark was kidnapped by the 10 Rings in Afghanistan. These two things have allowed him to confirm that this universe is a fusion universe of Marvel movies and Spider-Man movies. In other words, the leader of the 10 Rings gang is most likely a civil or military man with 10 rings. Roy didn't have any particularly strong dissatisfaction with Wenwu. But he had a lot of opinions about Wenwu's son Shanky. Now that he had finished the first phase of his revenge plan, he decided to do something that would make him happy to pass the time. For example, killing Shang-Chi, who made him feel disgusted. End of this chapter. Chapter 48 Spider-Man Goes Dark. Chapter 48 Spider-Man Goes Dark, seeking follow-up reading. Why are you looking for him? Kingpin asked, frowning. This has nothing to do with you. You just need to find him. Once you find him, send me the latest information and whereabouts of him. After saying that, Roy ignored Jin Bing and got up and left the office. When Roy left the office, Kingpin took a few deep breaths and calmed down. Then he picked up the phone on the table and dialed a number. Not long after, the call was connected, and a magnetic middle-aged male voice came from the other end of the phone. "What's up?" The person who spoke was none other than Wenwu, the leader of the 10 Commandments gang. "Have you offended Roy Chen recently?" Jin asked directly without any nonsense. "The Roy Chen who is called the Blood Angel?" Wenwu asked about Jin Bing in return. "Yes, that's him. He just came to me and asked me to find you and give him your latest information and whereabouts. He wouldn't target you for no reason." "What have you done recently?" Kingpin said quickly. Although the 10 Rings' main area of activity is not in America, Wenwu is still one of his partners. He has partners like Wenwu all over the world. Unless he's a friend of Tony Stark's, I can't think of anything I've done to offend him. Wenwu replied slowly. After hearing Wenwu's answer, Kingpin continued, "He's not here for Tony Stark. As a partner, I have to remind you that you need to properly manage the branches of the 10 Rings gang around the world. Otherwise, the troubles caused by these branches will sooner or later affect you." Just as Jin Bing finished speaking, Wenwu's voice rang out. "I can take care of my subordinates myself, so you don't need to worry about it." After saying that, Wenwu hung up the phone without waiting for Jin Bing to answer. Manhattan. Madison Avenue. After leaving Fisk Building, Roy did not return directly to his residence in Queens, but drove here. As for why he came to Madison Avenue, where many well-known advertising companies are located, the reason is simple: he plans to set up his own detective agency in this place. Before graduation, he had the idea of setting up a detective agency. If the blind Hydra hadn't killed the original body's parents on the day of the graduation ceremony, his detective agency would have been established long ago. After arriving at Madison Avenue, he drove to a real estate agency. After explaining his purpose to the receptionist, a young agent in a suit and tie soon came to him. Roy didn't waste any words and simply stated his request. As soon as he finished speaking, the young agent recommended shops that met his requirements. After an on-site inspection with the young agent, he rented a street-facing shop with an area of more than 200 square meters and signed a one-year lease with the shop owner. After renting the shop, he immediately found a decoration company and asked the company to renovate the shop and transform it into a detective agency that met his needs. After signing the contract with the decoration company and paying the advance payment, he drove towards his residence in Queens. If nothing goes wrong, his detective agency will be officially open in half a month. Although there are still some official procedures to go through before this, such as registration, Roy has already thought of someone to help him handle it. Kingpin. Among the people he knew now, Kingpin was the most suitable one to do this. Jin is not his younger brother. But this did not affect his treating Jinbing as his younger brother. Unless Jinbing gains the power to compete with him, no matter how unwilling he is, he will have to obey his orders. Before driving home, Roy sent a text message to Jinbing, asking him to handle these matters. Although Jin did not reply to him, he was sure that Jin would not, or dared not, refuse him. Time flies. A week passed by in the blink of an eye. During this week, Roy lived a life similar to before. If there is any difference, it is that he now has one more entertainment option. Watch a musical. To be precise, it was to go to a Broadway theater to watch the musical starring Mary Jane. It had been an average week for him. But for some, this was an unforgettable week. First, Peter. Roy originally thought that Peter in this universe would not have to experience the fate of Uncle Ben or Aunt May being killed. But it turned out that he thought too much. 5 nights ago, Ben Parker was driving home after get off work when he was stopped by a black man who had just robbed a convenience store. He was shot and his car was stolen. Although Peter found Ben Parker's murderer that night, it did not bring Ben Parker back to life. The next morning, Peter, who was supposed to go to class, did not go to Empire State University. Instead, he took a leave of absence and came to Roy's house. Maybe it was because I didn't see Ben Parker for the last time, and didn't hear his classic line, "With great power comes great responsibility." It is also possible that Peter discovered that the murderer of Ben Parker was caught by him 2 months ago, but was released again. You are right. Some criminals should not be brought to justice. This was the first sentence Peter said after seeing Roy. Although Peter didn't say anything at the time and only chatted with him for a few minutes before leaving, Roy could clearly see that Peter had turned evil. In other words, Peter Parker, who once naively believed that the law represented justice, left this world with Ben Parker. Roy was not very surprised by Peter's change. Whether in the movies or in the comics, there are plots where Spider-Man turns evil. In some parallel universes, Spider-Man is still an out-and-out supervillain. Except Peter. Tony Stark also had a rough week. After confirming that the Ten Rings had kidnapped him, the US military began operations to rescue him. The American military, which claims to be the strongest on the Blue Planet, has formulated a comprehensive rescue plan. Then, they screwed up. Not only did the rescue operation fail, but the rescue troops were also completely wiped out, all of them died at the hands of the Ten Rings gang. What's more troublesome is that after the rescue operation failed, the branch of the Ten Rings that kidnapped Tony Stark immediately moved away and completely disappeared in the mountains of Afghanistan. Perhaps it was because of the loss of some manpower, or perhaps it was because Tony had yet to produce the Jericho missile. After completing the transfer, the first thing Raza, the leader of the Afghan branch of the Ten Rings, did was to have Tony severely punished and threaten him to produce the Jericho missile as soon as possible. In order to let Tony know that he was not joking, Lazar killed Ethan, who saved his life, in front of him. When the military's operation to rescue Tony failed, public opinion was in an uproar and the military's reputation plummeted. At this time, SHIELD, which had become increasingly high-profile due to its fight against Hydra, joined the rescue operation. Not only that, SHIELD also took this opportunity to announce the resurrection of Captain America Rogers, claiming that Captain America Rogers would lead an elite team to the mountains of Afghanistan to rescue Tony. Although an elite team led by Captain America was dispatched, there is still no news of Tony Stark being successfully rescued. Manhattan. Fisk Building, Kingpin's office. Roy sat on the sofa in the reception area, frowning as he looked at Wenwu who was sitting opposite him. "Are you sure you don't have a son?" Roy said to Wenwu. After hearing his words, A hint of displeasure immediately flashed across Wenwu's face. P.S. Please read, vote for monthly tickets, and recommend. End of this chapter. Chapter 49 Hellfire Detective Agency. Chapter 49 Hellfire Detective Agency, seeking follow-up reading. Taking a deep breath and suppressing the anger in his heart, Wenwu replied, no. If possible, he didn't really want to meet Roy. Although Roy is of Chinese descent, Wenwu feels that he and Roy are completely different types of people. From the perspective of strength, he quite admires Roy. But from the perspective of how to behave, he felt that Roy was no different from a madman. Really not. Think carefully, could it be that one of your women secretly gave birth to a son for you but didn't tell you? Roy continued to ask. Although it is not yet the timeline for Shang-Chi to betray his ancestors and kill his father with his own hands, according to the plot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Shang-Chi should have been born a long time ago. Unless Wenwu doesn't know the existence of tarot at all. Otherwise, with his personality, he would definitely go looking for tarot, and then meet Yingli, the tarot guardian, in the bamboo forest at the entrance of tarot. In the end, he and Yingli staged a love story in which they got to know each other through fighting, fell in love with each other, and lived together. I don't have a son. Wenwu suppressed his inner anger and replied word by word. If the person asking him this question now was not Roy, he would have taught the other person a lesson with the 10 rings long ago. Seeing the anger on Wenwu's face becoming more and more obvious, Roy said seriously, forget it if there is none. This is a good thing for you. Although his words sounded a bit sarcastic, he was telling the truth. If Wenwu had a son now, and his son happened to be named Shang-Chi, then not only Shang-Chi will die, but Wenwu will also die. Because after he killed Shang-Chi, Wenwu would definitely seek revenge for the death of his son. At that time, even if Roy had no objection to Wenwu, he would have to send Wenwu to hell to report to Mephisto himself. After hearing his answer, Wenwu and Jinbing frowned at the same time. What do you mean by this? Wenwu didn't waste any brain cells thinking about it and asked immediately. Nothing, just the obvious meaning. Roy replied casually. Although Wenwu was quite polite to him now, he didn't think he needed to explain too much to Wenwu. After answering Wenwu's question, Roy said to Jinbing, who was standing next to Wenwu, how are the official documents for opening a detective agency going? It's already been prepared, just waiting for you to come and get it. After saying that, Jinbing stood up and left the reception area. He walked behind the desk, opened one of the drawers and took out a yellow file bag. Then he returned to Roy with the briefcase and handed it to him. All the official documents needed to open a detective agency are in there. Kingpin said to Roy. Roy did not open the file bag to check the documents inside. In front of Jinbing and Wenwu, he directly put the file bag into the system space. Then, he said to Jinbing and Wenwu, you two can chat slowly, I'm leaving first. As soon as he finished speaking, without waiting for Jinbing and Wenwu to answer, he used his ghost's teleportation ability and disappeared from their sight out of thin air. Only after he completely disappeared did Wenwu frown and look at Jinbing, and slowly said, he wants to be a private detective. As things stand, yes. Jinbing replied. What's the name of his detective agency? Wenwu continued to ask. Hellfire Detective Agency. Let's not talk about this anymore. When can you give me what I want? Jinbing looked at Wenwu seriously and spoke quickly. It's ready and will be delivered to your dock at 10 o'clock tonight. Wenwu replied. Jin didn't say anything else and nodded with satisfaction. After teleporting out of Kingpin's office, Roy returned to his car parked near the Fisk building and drove towards the detective agency on Madison Avenue. Although the office has not been completely renovated yet, according to the person in charge of the decoration company, only the final office furniture is left. Once the customized office furniture arrives, the office can officially open for business. Not long after, Roy, driving a Ford Raptor, arrived at the detective agency only 3 or 4 kilometers away from New York Central Park. After parking the car on the street in front of the office, Roy went inside and did a quick inspection. Just as the person in charge of the decoration company said, more than half of the renovation of the office has been completed. Except for the lack of office furniture, all other renovations have been completed. After a satisfying tour around the office, Roy left and prepared to drive back to his home in Queens. However, not long after he left the office, he saw Peter, wearing a black Spider-Man uniform, appear above the street, swinging on spider silk and quickly heading towards another block. After Ben Parker's funeral, Peter dyed his original red and blue uniform black. The black uniform won't stand out even if it's stained with the blood of a criminal. These are Peter's exact words. After seeing Peter quickly heading to other blocks, Roy, who had nothing else to do for the time being, didn't think much about it and immediately parked the car on the side of the road. Then, he took out a mask from the system space, put it on, and teleported to the rooftop of a nearby building. At this moment, he didn't know who Peter was going to deal with, but he didn't mind going over to have some fun. He followed Peter, constantly performing teleportation. Roy thought Peter was in such a hurry to go to other neighborhoods to fight criminals. It turns out that he thought too much. After arriving at a block near New York's Central Park, Peter went to the roof of a residential building and took off his hood and gloves. Then, he picked up the backpack next to him, took out clothes and shoes from the backpack and put them on, turning from Spider-Man back into what an ordinary college student should look like. After changing back into normal clothes, Peter took out hairspray and applied it on his head, turning his originally messy hair into a classic slicked back style, and took out a bottle of perfume and sprayed it. Seeing this scene, Roy quickly guessed what Peter was going to do next. Dating. It was obvious that Peter was going to date some girl next. Apart from this reason, he couldn't think of any other reason. Roy didn't speculate. After spraying the perfume, Peter quickly left the rooftop of the residential building and walked towards the coffee shop opposite the building. After arriving at the door of the coffee shop, he enthusiastically hugged a girl sitting at a table outside the coffee shop, and the two of them gave each other a deep French kiss as if no one was around. The woman Peter was hugging and kissing was none other than Liz Toombs, the black chick he had loved since he was in Midtown High School. Aesthetics needs to be improved. You can't like black people just for the sake of political correctness. You have become darker, not black. After seeing Peter and the black girl Liz hugging and kissing passionately, Roy immediately complained about Peter in his heart. Just as he was about to teleport away, his cell phone suddenly rang. He took out his cell phone and saw Peter's name clearly displayed on the screen. Roy did not answer Peter's call immediately, but looked at Peter at the door of the coffee shop. At this time, Peter had let go of Liz in his arms and looked up at him standing on the edge of the roof of the building. After the call was connected, Peter's voice rang out immediately. "Are you interested in a double date? I bought 2 tickets for Mary Jane's musical tonight. After the show, you can bring Mary Jane along and we can go on a double date. Liz would love to see you guys, too." Peter asked directly without any nonsense. "Not interested in." After saying that, Roy hung up the phone and teleported away from the rooftop of the building. He was not surprised by Peter's dark turn. But he didn't expect that the evil Peter would be able to win over Liz so quickly. End of this chapter. Chapter 50, The Missing Captain America. Chapter 50, The Missing Captain America, Seeking Follow-up Reading. A week later. Madison Avenue in Manhattan. Hellfire Detective Agency. Roy sat in the office of the firm, watching the TV on the wall. To be precise, it was watching the press conference held by Tony Stark after he returned to America. Tony Stark, who was sitting in front of the podium in a suit and tie, with his injured right hand in a halter, and a hamburger in his left hand, spoke seriously. "I didn't get to see my father for the last time." At this point, he put aside the burger he had only taken a bite of and continued. If I could see him for the last time, I would like to ask him what he thinks about Stark Industries producing arms. Has he ever regretted it, or wavered, or is he just as tough as the media reports say? In Afghanistan, I witnessed young soldiers being killed by the very weapons that were supposed to protect them, manufactured by Stark Industries. I also discovered that I was becoming part of a world without responsibility. As soon as he finished speaking, reporters in the audience raised their hands. Mr. Stark. A male reporter sitting in the front row spoke up. Just ask. Stark replied. What happened in Afghanistan? Why didn't you come back with Captain America, Rogers, Steve and the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. who rescued you? The male reporter asked immediately. I didn't see the Captain America and agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. you mentioned. Someone did help me escape from the Ten Rings, but that person was not Captain America, nor was he an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. His name is Ethan, and he comes from a small town called Gemilla. Having said that, Tony stood up and walked behind the podium. He saved my life and woke me up to the fact that I could contribute more to the world than just making weapons. Therefore, I have decided to close the weapons division of Stark Industries, effective immediately. Until I find a new purpose for the company, and something else that feels right to me. As soon as Tony finished speaking, the scene turned into chaos. The reporters sitting on the ground stood up one after another, and Obadiah quickly came to Tony and put his arm around his shoulders. Obadiah first asked Tony, who had just made his shocking remarks, to leave the podium, and then began to clean up the mess. The main point of today's press conference is that Tony is back and he is healthy. As for other issues, we will discuss them further and give you the latest news. Before Obadiah could finish his words, Roy turned off the TV, picked up the phone on the table, and dialed an internal number. Come in. After saying that, he hung up the phone. Not long after, Sky, dressed in casual clothes, pushed open the office door and walked in. You better be serious. I'm trying to break through a very important firewall. Sky came up to Roy and said with a frown. When the firm officially opened, Roy invited, or rather, lured Sky to be his assistant. Sky didn't think for long and quickly accepted his invitation. He left the Rising Tide organization and came to the office. Tony Stark announced the closure of the weapons division. Stark Industries stock will definitely plummet. I asked you to short Stark Industries stock before. How did you do? Roy asked Sky. When news came from Afghanistan that Tony Stark had been rescued, he ordered Sky to short Stark Industries stock. Although Sky had no previous experience in stock trading, shorting Stark Industries stock did not require any experience. He just had to follow the normal short selling process. It's already been done. After that, Sky looked at Roy in confusion and said slowly, how do you know that he will close the weapons department when he comes back? Others are buying at high prices, but you are not only shorting the market, but you are also adding leverage. Are you so confident? Because I'm a superhuman with superpowers. Roy replied. After hearing his answer, Sky immediately rolled her eyes at him. If you don't want to say it, forget it. When do you plan to buy back those stocks and return them to the broker? Sky said slowly. Wait until Stark Industries stock drops 50% and then buy it back. Roy replied calmly. If he remembered correctly, Stark Industries stock plummeted 56.5% after Tony announced the closure of Stark Industries weapons division. However, for safety reasons, he didn't think he needed to go that extreme. After all, this is not a pure Marvel Cinematic Universe, so it is better to leave some room. If you buy after the market plummets 50%, you can earn at least more than $5 million from this short sale. Sky quickly calculated the final profit and unconsciously widened her big, Kazillan eyes. It's okay, not a lot. After all, it's the result of leverage. Unlike the shocked Sky, Roy didn't think the benefit this time was exaggerated. Many colleagues who traveled to the Marvel Universe would take advantage of Tony's closure of the weapons department to make a fortune. He just did what other people in his field would do. Washington, D.C. The Triskelion Building, headquarters of SHIELD. Director's Office. Nick Fury turned off the TV and said to Agent Hill, "Tony Stark really doesn't give us any face. If nothing unexpected happens, we will see news about SHIELD in all major media outlets tomorrow." At this point, he paused and continued, "Any news from the rescue team?" "No. The joint force sent by the European branches arrived in Afghanistan yesterday. I believe there will be news soon." Agent Hill replied quickly. After the military rescue operation failed, Nick Fury originally wanted to use the rescue of Tony Stark to further enhance the reputation of SHIELD and to gain more official support for SHIELD. But now, things have completely deviated from his plan. The rescue team led by Captain America not only failed to rescue Tony Stark, but also lost contact with SHIELD and completely disappeared in the mountains of Afghanistan. If this happened in other small countries, it would never happen. But in Afghanistan, known as the Graveyard of Empires, anything is possible. Not to mention that Captain Rogers only led an elite team into Afghanistan. Even the massive US military forces, armed to the teeth, were unable to gain any advantage in Afghanistan. Otherwise, the US military in Afghanistan would not need to buy Jericho missiles from Stark Industries. The power of the Jericho missile is unquestionable. But at the same time, the price is far higher than other missiles. Tony Stark going to Afghanistan himself is a good example. Only transactions worth more than $5 million are worth his personal trip and delivery of a case of wine. I hope so. If there is no further news after 48 hours, let Romanoff, Barton, and Coulson lead the team to Afghanistan. Captain America Rogers is now the face of SHIELD. He cannot have any accidents, let alone be killed in a place like Afghanistan. Nick Fury said seriously. If he could do it again, he would never send Captain America Rogers over so easily. Even if there is a party, it won't be as high profile as before. If Captain America's resurrection had not been announced in a high-profile manner and it had not been announced that Captain America would personally lead an elite team to Afghanistan, whether the rescue team could rescue Tony or not would not have had any impact on S.H.I.E.L.D's reputation. But unfortunately, there is no medicine for regret in the world. Tony Stark, who was kidnapped by the Ten Rings, is back, but Captain America, who went to rescue him, is missing. Nick Fury sighed helplessly. After seeing Nick Fury sigh, Agent Hill, who wanted to say something, swallowed his words back, closed his mouth decisively, and said nothing. P.S. Please read, vote for monthly tickets, and recommend. End of this chapter. Chapter 51, Injured Gwen. Chapter 51, Injured Gwen, seeking follow-up reading. Early morning. Inside a penthouse in Manhattan. Norman Osborn, the founder and chairman of the Osborn Group, paced back and forth in his large study of dozens of square meters in an expensive robe, his expression constantly changing as he talked to himself like a mental patient. Tony Stark is back. How did he come back alive? He shouldn't come back, he can't come back, he will take away the military orders from the Osborn Group. Steal? What qualifications does he have to steal the military order from the Osborn Group? Mine, all the military orders are mine, and Osborn Group is the largest supplier to the military. He'll be in the headlines tomorrow, and so will Stark Industries. No, he can't be in the headlines, and neither can Stark Industries. Norman Osborn, who was pacing back and forth in the study, stopped, stood in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling mirror beside the study, and looked at himself in the mirror with a troubled expression. At this moment, he in the mirror suddenly showed a disdainful expression and said in a cold tone, "If you don't want others to take away your things, then get rid of them." Board members, Tony Stark, Stark Industries, Hammer Industries, Alchemy Corporation. Get rid of them, destroy them, and everything will be ours. Norman Osborn in the mirror seemed to be leaving the mirror world. He put his hands on the mirror and said viciously. After hearing what he said in the mirror, Norman Osborn in the real world also showed the same ferocious expression. The confusion and worry on his face disappeared without a trace, and were replaced by ferocity and determination. As if his belief was strengthened in an instant, Norman Osborn revealed a strange smile, took off his expensive nightgown, held his head high, and walked towards the bookshelf on the other side of the study like a king who dominated everything. Coming to the bookshelf, he opened the hidden combination lock panel and entered the password. As the password was entered, the heavy bookshelf, which was 3 or 4 meters high and 2 or 3 meters wide, slowly opened like a sliding door, revealing a hidden entrance behind the bookshelf. When the hidden entrance behind the bookshelf appeared, Norman Osborn walked in without any hesitation. A few minutes later, wearing a devil helmet and a green uniform, Norman Osborn, who had transformed into the Green Devil, flew out of the secret exit of the study room on a devil glider, laughing like a madman, and flew towards the Stark Tower, which is also located in Manhattan. The rooftop of a building near Stark Tower. Spider-Woman Gwen, wearing a black and white hooded uniform, sat on the edge of the roof of the building and took out her midnight snack from the backpack next to her. A Big Mac burger whose packaging box has been deformed and is completely cold. In the past, no matter how hungry she was, she would never eat a high-calorie Big Mac as a midnight snack in the early hours of the morning. But now, to be more precise, when she went to college and moved into the dormitory of Empire State University, high-calorie, high-sugar junk food became her daily midnight snack. It's impossible not to eat. Fighting crime is a very physically demanding task. She took off her hood and took out the cold Big Mac. Just as she opened her tempting lips, ready to taste the Big Mac in front of her, she suddenly frowned and turned her head to look into the distance. Manhattan in the early morning is far less lively than during the day. The moonlight tonight was not particularly bright, as the clouds high in the sky blocked most of the light. However, even so, Gwen still saw a figure flying towards Stark Tower. Green Devil. After seeing the Green Goblin, Gwen immediately put down the Big Mac in her hand, picked up the mask beside her and put it on, then stood up immediately. Norman Osborn, who was flying the demon glider, was twisting and turning through the air as if he was drunk. When Gwen discovered him, he also saw Gwen standing on the roof of the building. Although his target tonight was not Gwen, when he saw Gwen coming towards him swinging on the spider silk, he, whose body was already dominated by the evil personality, did not hesitate at all and immediately activated the machine gun on the demon glider. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Bullets rained down on Gwen. Facing Norman Osborn's attack, Gwen immediately let go of the spider silk in her hand and turned her body flexibly in the air like a diver to avoid the incoming bullets. At the same time, she raised her right hand and fired a ball of spider silk at Norman Osborn. Snapped. Spider silk paste. The spider silk shot by Gwen accurately hit Norman Osborn's demon mask, sticking firmly to it and blocking his vision. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Gwen raised her left hand and fired a stream of silk at the demon glider. When the spider silk hit the demon glider, she pulled hard with her left hand, and she quickly came in front of Norman Osborn while originally falling towards the ground. Bang! Gwen didn't use any fancy moves, but kicked Norman Osborn in the chest, sending him flying. However, before she could be happy, the demon glider turned and flew towards the falling Norman Osborn at high speed. After seeing this scene, Gwen immediately let go of the spider silk and shot a spider silk towards the nearby building, and landed on the outer wall of the building. The demon glider quickly caught Norman Osborn, who was free falling. The Queen. Roy, who had just finished playing poker with Mary Jane, was lying on the bed, his right hand unconsciously moving back and forth on Mary Jane's seductive body, thinking about the 3 ultimate questions in philosophy. Who am I? Where am I from? Where am I going? Although he is now an absolute superhuman, superhumans are also human beings and will experience sage time after playing poker. At this moment, the cell phone he placed on the bedside table suddenly vibrated. Hum hum. The sound of the phone vibrating wasn't very loud, but it still immediately attracted Roy and Mary Jane's attention. Roy picked up the phone and frowned immediately when he saw that it was Gwen calling. What happened? Mary Jane, who was lying next to him, asked immediately after noticing his frown. Gwen called. After saying that, Roy answered the phone. Before he could say anything, Gwen's voice rang out. I'm injured, can you come over here? Although I can't see Gwen's current condition, her weak tone is enough to explain the problem. Where are you? Roy asked immediately. A residential building near Madison Square Garden. Gwen replied quickly. Okay, I'll be right over. Roy hung up the phone, turned to look at Mary Jane, and continued, You go to sleep first, I'll go out for a while. Mary Jane replied softly. Although she was a little curious about why Gwen called Roy in the middle of the night, she was considerate and didn't ask any more questions. Under her gaze, Roy quickly stood up and put on his clothes. Then, he used the ghost's teleportation ability and disappeared from her sight out of thin air. The ghost's teleportation ability can only teleport about 500 meters at most. Although the distance is not very far, it is enough for traveling. In less than a minute, Roy made it from his home in Queens to Madison Square Garden in Manhattan. Without much effort, he saw the injured Gwen on the roof of a nearby residential building. At this time, Gwen was leaning against the wall, sitting near the security door on the roof, her chest heaving violently. There were many holes in her uniform, and the wounds had not yet completely healed, and blood was slowly oozing out of the wounds. Who hurt you? Roy came to Gwen and squatted down, taking out an emergency medical kit from the system space. Green Devil. Gwen replied weakly. End of this chapter. Chapter 52 You are too weak. Chapter 52 You are too weak, please read. Green Devil? Shouldn't it? Roy frowned immediately after hearing Gwen's words. He wasn't surprised at all that Gwen would meet the Green Goblin and fight him. As long as Gwen is fighting crime as Spider-Woman, it's only a matter of time before she and the Green Goblin come to blows. But the problem is that the Green Goblin doesn't have the power to seriously injure Gwen. The Green Devil's regular strength is only 9 tons. Her speed, reaction, endurance, and self-healing abilities are not as good as Gwen's. Compared to ordinary people, Norman Osborn, who has been injected with physical enhancement drugs, is indeed very strong. But compared to Gwen, who has superpowers like spider sense and spider physical abilities, his abilities are only average. Unless this universe's Norman Osborn gains even more power than in the movies. Otherwise, even if Gwen couldn't beat him, she wouldn't be seriously injured. While Roy took out painkillers and hemostatic agents from the emergency medical kit purchased on the black market to treat Gwen, he asked about the details of what happened. Gwen did not hide anything and told him everything that happened. After listening to Gwen's story, Roy showed an expression of as expected. In terms of strength, Norman Osborn is indeed not as strong as Gwen. But compared to Gwen, he also has his own advantages. That means ignoring civilian casualties. Gwen would be seriously injured by him, mainly because Norman Osborn distracted Gwen with the safety of civilian lives, and then injured Gwen with a specially made pumpkin-throwing knife. In addition to this, there is another very important reason why Gwen was seriously injured, that is, Gwen played too many low-end games, and her combat skills and combat experience became worse without her realizing it. But it's not Gwen's fault. Although crime is frequent in New York, the vast majority of it is committed by common criminals. Apart from anything else, after becoming Spider-Woman, Gwen has never played a high-end game. If Five Fingers and Mr. Negative of the Hand had not been killed by Roy, she would still have had a chance to play in a high-end game. But unfortunately, Mrs. Gao and Mr. Film were killed by him early in the morning. After Gwen told her what happened, Roy completed the initial treatment of Gwen. Although he is not a professional doctor, it does not require superb medical skills to treat Gwen now. Both Gwen and Peter have the self-healing factor after obtaining the spider superpowers bestowed by the spider totem. Although their self-healing factor is not as strong as Wolverine's super self-healing, compared with ordinary people, their self-healing ability is extremely strong. They can completely heal serious injuries that ordinary people cannot heal on their own in just a few hours or days. Take the present for example. Norman Osborn's pumpkin dagger left Gwen with many wounds. But within a few hours, these wounds will heal completely without even leaving scars. I'll take you back first. Roy threw the emergency medical kit back into the system space and said to Gwen. Gwen nodded. After getting Gwen's consent, Roy picked her up like a princess. Then, he decisively used his teleportation superpower. It wasn't long before they were back at Empire State University. To be precise, it was Gwen's dormitory at Empire State University. Most of the dormitories at American universities are double rooms. Empire State University is no exception. However, Gwen currently has no roommates and lives alone. In order to avoid exposing Spider-Woman's identity, she specifically applied for a single dormitory from the school. Under normal circumstances, the school would not agree to such an application. But in the end she got the single dormitory she wished for. Top students always get some preferential treatment. What's more, she is a beautiful and smart girl. After returning to the dormitory, Roy gently put Gwen on the bed and said to her, "Don't worry about the Green Devil. I will take care of it. You should have a good rest. You should also be careful. He is not an ordinary criminal and is not easy to deal with." Gwen said slowly. "Don't worry, he is no match for me," Roy replied. After saying that, he prepared to use his teleportation superpower to leave. However, at this moment, he suddenly remembered something and said to Gwen, "When you fought him, did you leave anything behind that would reveal your true identity?" Unlike him who has a system space, Gwen and Peter do not have any special portable space. In order to facilitate changing clothes, they will carry the spider silk shooter and uniform in a backpack. After hearing his question, Gwen immediately remembered the backpack she had forgotten on the roof of the building. "My backpack was left on the roof of a building near Stark Tower. It contained my wallet and student ID," Gwen said, frowning. "Don't worry, I'll bring you your backpack back," Roy replied. Under Gwen's gaze, he used his teleportation ability and disappeared from Gwen's sight. Near Stark Tower. Norman Osborn was feeling extremely happy as he admired the Stark Tower, which was now burning after he blew up the top floors and the building's sign. While humming an impromptu tune, he picked up the lady's backpack next to him. After seriously injuring Gwen, he also tried to hunt Gwen down. But unfortunately, Gwen still used the building's cover and obstruction to escape his pursuit. Although he failed to kill Gwen, who made him irritated, his mood improved a lot when he thought about Gwen being scratched by the pumpkin-throwing knife. Without Gwen's obstruction, he first used the mini-missiles on the demon glider to blow up the sign of Stark Tower, and then launched the remaining missiles at the highest floors of Stark Tower. Just like arsonists like to stay at the scene to admire their masterpieces, he did not leave immediately, but came to the rooftop of the building where Gwen was originally. He originally just wanted to admire his masterpiece in this VIP seat. Unexpectedly, he found Gwen's backpack and Big Mac here. He doesn't care about burgers or anything like that. But when he saw Gwen's backpack, he knew his battle with Spider-Woman wasn't over yet. Just as he was about to unzip his backpack to see what was inside, a voice sounded from behind him. The person who spoke was none other than Roy, who had rushed over from Empire State University. "Put down your backpack." Norman Osborn immediately turned and looked in the direction where the sound came from. Although Roy and Harry were not good friends, Norman Osborn recognized him immediately. He had met Roy at the graduation ceremony of Midtown High School and knew that Roy was Harry's classmate. "If you want Spider-Woman's backpack, then you have to." Before Norman Osborn could finish his words, Roy, who was more than 10 meters away from him, appeared in front of him like a ghost and grabbed his right hand. At the same time, his right hand hit his chest like a cannonball. Bang! A dull beating sound like a war drum suddenly rang out, and Norman Osborn immediately experienced unprecedented severe pain and involuntarily spat out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, he was wearing a demon mask now, otherwise, the blood he spurted would fall on Roy. In order to avoid killing Norman Osborn with one punch, Roy did not use his full strength. Even so, Norman Osborn wasn't faring much better. If it weren't for the physical enhancement potion that gave him a physique far superior to that of ordinary people, and the uniform on his body also provided a certain degree of defense, Roy's punch would have gone straight through his chest. Roy didn't care about his situation and twisted his left hand hard. Click! A crisp sound of breaking bones was heard, and Norman Osborn's right forearm was immediately broken. After breaking his right hand, Roy took back Gwen's backpack and put it into the system space. "You are too weak. You're not even qualified to let me use my full strength. P.S. Please give me monthly tickets, follow-up reading, comments, and recommendation tickets." End of this chapter. Chapter 53 Dog Training. Chapter 53 Dog Training, please read later. After retrieving Gwen's backpack, Roy released Norman Osborn's right hand. The next second, Norman Osborn fell to his knees, his left hand unconsciously covering his broken right forearm. After a few seconds, he raised his left hand, took off the demon helmet on his head, and said to Roy, "Roy, it's me, Norman Osborn, Harry's father. Please, don't hurt me anymore." Norman Osborn looked at Roy pitifully, like an abused puppy. Roy knew he was acting, so he cooperated with him with great interest and pretended to be surprised. "How could it be you? Mr. Osborn, how come you are the Green Devil? What the hell is going on?" After hearing his words, Norman Osborn, who was kneeling on the ground, hugged the devil helmet and continued to say in a pitiful tone, "It's a physical enhancement potion. Physical enhancement potions have side effects. After injection, people will develop evil personalities. I didn't do it. It was the evil personality that controlled my body. He killed the board members, hurt Spider-Woman, and destroyed Stark Tower. He did everything. I want to stop him, but I'm not as strong as him. Please, don't let him control me anymore. I don't want him to control me anymore." Before Norman Osborn could finish his words, the demon glider behind Roy suddenly extended its sharp blade and flew towards Roy at high speed under his secret control. At the same time, the pitiful expression on his face suddenly disappeared and he became extremely ferocious. The demon glider flies very fast. But the demon glider did not hit Roy as Norman Osborn had planned. The moment the demon glider launched its attack, 4 sharp adamantium bone spurs suddenly grew out of Roy's back. Before the demon glider could get close to him, 2 adamantium bone spikes hit the demon glider from the left and right, nailing it firmly to the ground. As for the other 2 adamantium bone spikes, they struck Norman Osborn like lightning and pierced his shoulders in an instant. The moment Norman Osborn took off his demon helmet and begged for mercy, Roy guessed what he was going to do. He is a time traveler who has watched Tobey's Spider-Man movie trilogy more than 10 times. Even without this foresight advantage, his spider sense would allow him to easily spot the demon glider behind him. "Mr. Osborn, you are a bit unsportsmanlike. You actually attacked a young man like me from behind." After saying that, Roy controlled the adamantium bone spur that pierced Norman Osborn's shoulder. He first let the sharpened part of the bone spur tip completely pierce through the opponent's shoulder. Then he used the adamantium bone spurs to lift Norman Osborn up. After being brought up, Norman Osborn began to struggle instinctively. But soon, he stopped struggling. Although Roy had allowed the edged part of the adamantium bone spur to completely penetrate his shoulder, his struggle would still enlarge the wound on his shoulder, causing him even more severe pain. When Norman Osborn stopped struggling and looked at him fiercely, Roy controlled the other two adamantium bone spikes and grabbed the demon glider that was nailed to the ground and had its jet engine destroyed. Then, he picked up the demon helmet on the ground and used his teleportation superpower. In just a moment, he disappeared on the roof of the building with Norman Osborn and the demon glider. Central Park, New York. Compared to the daytime, New York's Central Park is extremely quiet in the early morning. After performing teleportation more than 10 times in a row, Roy appeared in an uninhabited corner of the park with Norman Osborn and the Devil Glider. After looking around, he took back the adamantium bone spur. Norman Osborn and the Devil Glider fell to the grass in a very embarrassing manner. Before he could get up, Roy's voice rang out. "Mr. Osborn, do you have a dog?" Roy asked Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn did not answer his question, but stared at him fiercely. Roy ignored his glare and said slowly, "I used to have a pet dog, a yellow Labrador. Maybe it was because it was young when I first bought it. It was quite obedient when I first bought it from the pet store. But later on, maybe because I was often not at home, my family spoiled him too much. One night, when I was feeding him dog food, I noticed he had a minor problem guarding his food. At that time, I didn't care too much. After a while, when I got home, do you know what I saw?" Having said that, Roy paused, came to Norman Osborn and squatted down, then continued. "Not only did it not come to me to wag its tail and try to please me, but it also barked at me a few times, as if I had intruded into its territory. At that time, I knew that it was somewhat confused about its own status. My family told me that it was just a little naughty and that it would be fine if it was sent to a pet school for a while. However, I did not send it to a pet school. Instead, I chose to train it myself. It's not that I'm reluctant to spend money. The cost of his treatment was several times the amount charged by the pet school. Do you know why I would rather spend more energy and money to train it myself? The reason is simple, because I want it to know who the real master is. You are lucky. You are Harry's father and the chairman of the Osborn Group. You are worthy of being trained." After saying that, Roy stood up, raised his right hand, and released the adamantium bone claw in front of Norman Osborn. Noon. A coffee shop outside Empire State College. "Did you meet him last night?" Gwen asked him after taking the backpack from Roy. "Met," Roy replied. "Then now he..." Gwen continued to ask. "Don't worry, he's not dead. I didn't kill him. However, he will not cause trouble in the future. To be more precise, he is my subordinate now. Without my order, he will not show up in public," Roy replied calmly. After hearing his answer, Gwen frowned and asked, "What did you do to him?" "Nothing. I just trained him for a few hours like I would a dog. He was convinced by me and agreed to be my subordinate." Although Norman Osborn injured Gwen last night, after careful consideration, Roy decided to spare his life and make him his subordinate. On the one hand, Gwen's injuries were not serious. On the other hand, a living Norman Osborn is more valuable than a dead Green Goblin. After hearing Roy's answer, Gwen was silent for a few seconds, then asked in confusion, "Who is he?" "P.S. There is one more chapter to be updated in the evening, and my stock of manuscripts has been used up. Thanks to Emperor, loyalty for the reward of 1,666 Dianyo coins, thank you for your support." End of this chapter. Chapter 54, The First SSR Card. Chapter 54, The First SSR Card, Seeking Follow-up Reading. Who exactly is the Green Devil? Gwen is not the only one who is curious about this question, the citizens of New York are also curious. Especially now. To let others know that Stark Tower was destroyed by himself. After launching a mini-missile at Stark Tower, Norman Osborn deliberately drove the demon glider to the first-floor lobby of Stark Tower, attacked the building's security guards, and was captured by the building's surveillance cameras. If you knew his true identity, would you capture him or seek revenge on him? Roy did not answer Gwen immediately, but asked Gwen back. Will not. Without any hesitation, Gwen replied immediately. Why? Roy continued to ask. Because he is your subordinate now. Although I don't know why you want to make him your subordinate, I believe you must have your purpose in doing so. More importantly, I believe you can control him and won't let him hurt innocent people like he did before. Gwen said seriously. After hearing her answer, Roy smiled and said, Since you trust me so much, I will return your trust. Norman Osborn. The Green Goblin is Norman Osborn. What? Gwen immediately widened her big, Caslin eyes, and an expression of disbelief appeared on her pretty face full of collagen. After several seconds, she said, Are you telling the truth? Of course it's true. After saying that, Roy took out his cell phone, opened a photo he took last night, and handed the phone to Gwen. After successfully persuading Norman Osborn to be his subordinate last night, he guessed that Gwen would definitely ask him if he had encountered the Green Goblin. Although he could also say that he hadn't encountered it, he didn't intend to hide it from Gwen. Gwen gasped when she saw the photo on her phone. In the photo, Norman Osborn was lying on the grass covered in blood, with wounds all over his body. Next to him was the demon glider with its flight engine destroyed. How could it be him? Gwen asked with a puzzled look on her face as she handed the phone back to Roy. He was injected with a physical enhancement drug developed by the Osborn Group, which resulted in an evil personality. Roy took the phone and spoke slowly. Physical enhancement potion. Gwen frowned slightly. Although she did not serve as an intern at the Osborn Group like in the Amazing Spider-Man universe, she was no stranger to the Osborn Group and knew that the Osborn Group possessed many cutting-edge technologies in the fields of biomedicine and chemistry. The military has passed a physical enhancement plan to try to mass-produce super soldiers like Captain America. So the military found the Osborn Group and asked them to develop a strengthening drug that could greatly enhance the physical fitness and strength of soldiers. The drug has been developed, but the side effects are also obvious. It will produce a crazy personality with violent and aggressive tendencies. According to Norman, after Captain America woke up from the ice, the military cancelled the physical enhancement program and invested the funds in other programs. Roy said slowly. Gwen's expression became complicated after hearing that the physical enhancement potion was originally developed for the military. In the following time, she asked Roy how he planned to control Norman Osborn to prevent Norman Osborn from turning into the Green Devil again and hurting other people. Regarding this question, Roy gave an answer that Gwen expected. Beat you if you don't listen. No matter how disobedient a dog is, if you beat it hard enough and enough, you can still make it behave itself. If it doesn't work, it means you didn't hit hard enough. Although Gwen felt that Roy's approach was a bit too simple and crude, she didn't say anything. After chatting for more than 10 minutes, they left the coffee shop. Gwen has classes in the afternoon. As for Roy, he was going to work at the Hellfire Detective Agency. Although up to now, the firm has not received any commissions. But Roy was in no hurry. He has not yet let Sky advertise on the dark web, nor has he announced to the public that he is the Blood Angel. Once he reveals that he is the Blood Angel, the office will immediately be crowded with various clients. The office of Hellfire Detective Agency. Roy sat in the boss chair in the office, looking at the TV hanging on the wall. To be precise, I was watching the news about the Green Goblin attacking Stark Tower. The Green Goblin's attack on Stark Tower did not cause serious casualties. The attack took place in the early hours of the morning, and except for the building security guards who were attacked by the Green Goblin, no staff members of Stark Tower were injured. The highest floors of the building are either Tony Stark's private mansion or the high-level offices of Stark Tower. Not to mention the early morning, even during the day, there wouldn't be many people there. Tony Stark just returned to America yesterday and held a press conference. That night the Green Goblin attacked Stark Tower. There was no suspense at all. Part of the attention that should have been focused on Tony Stark was successfully shifted to the Green Goblin. Norman Osborn would be very happy now if he hadn't met Roy. But he couldn't be happy at all now. Because at this time he was wrapped like a mummy, lying on the bed in the bedroom of the mansion to recuperate. After successfully convincing him by using dog training methods, Roy sent him back to the secret room in the mansion's study, barely breathing and covered in blood. After confirming that he would not die and giving him simple treatment with the medical equipment in the secret room, Roy used his teleportation superpower to leave. After watching the news about the Green Goblin attacking Stark Tower for a few minutes, Roy turned off the TV. He picked up the phone at his desk, dialed an internal number, and called Skye in. As always, Skye was wearing comfortable casual clothes today. Although she didn't dress up particularly, her beautiful looks and perfect figure still give people a youthful and beautiful feeling. What happened? Skye asked directly after entering the office. Nothing, I just want you to help find a few people. Roy said to Skye. What are their names? Skye continued to ask. Alexander Pierce, Daniel Whitehall, Gideon Malik, Wolfgang von Strucker, Brock Rumlow, Grant Ward, John Garrett. As Skye watched, Roy rattled off a long list of names. The names he mentioned are all important members of Hydra who have appeared in movies and TV series. He had had someone check before and knew that the current Minister of the Security Council was not Alexander Pierce. Not only that, judging from the performance of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra, Hydra did not parasitize inside S.H.I.E.L.D. like in the movie universe. His purpose now is very simple, which is to ask Skye to confirm whether Alexander Pierce and others exist. Who are they? Why are you looking for them? Skye asked, frowning. Although Roy said more than 10 names at once, as a top hacker, she has a very good memory. As soon as Roy finished speaking, she remembered the names. I'll tell you after you've checked. Roy said slowly. After hearing what he said, Skye immediately rolled her eyes at him. Even if you don't tell me, I can find out. After saying that, Skye left the office without looking back. When Skye left the office, Roy opened the system panel that only he could see. Number of normal card draws, 1, compensation for version update. Looking at the number of card draws in front of him, he began to wonder whether he should draw a card now. He didn't think for too long and made a decision quickly. Smoke it now. After the system was upgraded to version 2.0, his original plan was to save the ordinary card draw times to exchange for advanced card draw times. But now, he has changed his mind. Instead of waiting 9 months for a high-level card draw, you might as well try your luck now. I don't believe my luck is really that bad. Excluding the Spider-Man card, he has drawn cards a total of 8 times since he traveled through time, and obtained 5 SR-level cards and 3 R-level cards. His intuition told him that he had already drawn cards 8 times and should have triggered the guaranteed mechanism. If only the system's card drawing really had a guaranteed mechanism. Besides this, there is another reason why he plans to draw cards now, which is that he wants to see if the upgraded system has changed the way of drawing cards. Do you want to start drawing cards? Taking a deep breath, Roy decisively chose yes. The moment he made his choice, the number of normal card draws instantly returned to 0. The system does not display a bunch of cards like before. After a dazzling golden light, a golden card appeared directly in his sight in its front view. Obtained SSR Iceman card. Deck update. Deck, SSR Iceman, SR Card King, SR Phantom Cat, SR Fireman, SR Cyclops, R Ghost, R Angel, R Agent Zero, Fusion Wolverine. What the hell? The guarantee was really triggered. The first SSR card is finally in hand. An irrepressible smile of satisfaction appeared on Roy's face. The next second after drawing the Iceman card, a lot of descriptions about the Iceman appeared in his mind. End of this chapter. Chapter 55, Water Molecules Teleportation. Chapter 55, Water Molecules Teleportation, seeking follow-up reading. Roy knew what superpowers the Iceman had without the system explaining. Although the Iceman did not have any outstanding performances in the movie, his only notable victory was defeating the fireman. But he is still undoubtedly an Omega-level mutant. Without any hesitation, Roy immediately browsed the instructions given by the system. Soon, he went through the Iceman's instructions completely. After reading it, the smile on his face became even brighter. He had already prepared that the SSR-level Iceman card would only grant him the strength in the movie. It turns out that he thought too much. It may be because the system has been upgraded, or it may be that the system feels that the Iceman in the movie is a bit disgraceful to an Omega-level mutant, so the superpowers granted by the Iceman card are closer to those in the comics. It can create temperatures as low as -76 degrees Celsius in a few seconds, and can even reach temperatures close to absolute zero. The water vapor in the air can be frozen into ice and made into cold weapons, ice walls, ice ladders, etc. Lowers the temperature inside and outside the body, creates a layer of ice to cover the body and increase defense. Transform the body into organic ice, water, and steam, giving oneself an elemental body. When the ability is developed to control the three forms of water, ice, water, and steam, it can also use water molecules to teleport or absorb water and water vapor to increase the size of the body and obtain superpowers that match the body size. Create ice, water, and steam clones, and control the clones created. By using the transformation of water molecules, organic matter, such as the human body, can be transformed into organic ice, and then transformed back. Combined with decomposition and recombination, it is possible to teleport oneself and others over long distances. When the superpower is fully exerted, it can also freeze the planet. The only problem is that due to lack of imagination and talent, and fear of his own superpowers, the Iceman does not fully utilize his superpowers. After reading the instructions given by the system, Roy turned off the system panel and used the Ghost's teleportation superpower. The next second, he came in front of Skye while sitting in the boss chair in the office. "I have to go out for something, you should go back to the apartment," Roy said to Skye. When Skye left the Rising Tide organization and became his assistant, he rented a nice apartment nearby for Skye. "I'll be back once I've checked out the person you're looking for," Skye replied. "No rush, you can check those people slowly," Roy continued. "I'll be able to finish checking them out soon. I've already found several." Skye looked at Roy with pride. "You found several of them so quickly?" Roy showed a surprised expression and immediately asked, "Which ones did you find?" "Alexander Pierce, Gideon Malik, Brock Rumlow, John Garrett, Grant Ward," Skye replied quickly. After hearing her words, Roy immediately came to her side and said to her, "Get their information." As soon as he finished speaking, Skye displayed the information he had found on the computer screen. Alexander Pierce, former head of Britain's Secret Intelligence Service, has retired. Gideon Malik, a European billionaire, patriarch of the Malik family, and chairman of the Malik Group. Brock Rumlow, captain of the United States Navy and leader of the Navy SEALs. John Garrett, one of the CIA's deputy directors for operations. Grant Ward, senior agent in the CIA's Directorate of Operations. After reading the information Skye had found, Roy frowned slightly. He wasn't surprised that Skye was able to track them down. But he didn't expect that, except for Gideon Malik, who was similar to his memory and a European tycoon, the identities of the other people were completely different from what he remembered. Alexander Pierce fled to Great Britain and became the former head of the Secret Intelligence Service. Brock Crossbones Rumlow joined the U.S. Navy. John Garrett and Grant Ward were lurking in the CIA. Instead of all of them lurking in SHIELD like in the movie universe, they are scattered across different departments in different countries. They are all Hydra's people. You know what grudges I have with Hydra without me telling you. Check their specific whereabouts," Roy said to Skye. "It is good." After saying that, Skye started a more in-depth investigation without any hesitation. While she was investigating Alexander Pierce and others in depth, Roy teleported away from the office. After performing teleportation more than 20 times in succession, he arrived at an uninhabited forest in the suburbs of New York. After looking around, he decisively used the Iceman's superpowers. First, it creates low temperatures and freezes surrounding objects, creates ice swords, ice shields, ice walls, and covers the body with ice. Then comes the transformation of the body, turning oneself into ice, water, and steam. The last step is to create and manipulate clones, teleport water molecules, transform into ice giants and water giants, etc. Time passes little by little. After playing in the forest for more than half an hour, Roy finished this ability test with satisfaction. After testing, he found that the superpowers granted by the Iceman card were more useful than he expected. The only problem is that, like Iceman, he has yet to fully realize his potential as an Omega-level mutant. Compared to the movies, the superpowers granted by the Iceman cards are much stronger, but there is still a lot of room for improvement and development. Roy took a look at the trees and land that were frozen by him, and without any hesitation, he immediately used teleportation. To be precise, he used the teleportation of water molecules granted by the Iceman card. His body first changed from a body of flesh and blood to an elemental form like a body of ice and blood. Not only his body, but his clothes also turned into an icy form. Like an Iceman, he instantly decomposed into a mass of water molecules that were invisible to the naked eye and disappeared completely. The Queen. The living room of Roy's residence. A large number of organic water molecules in special forms appeared in the living room and condensed into a human figure. Afterwards, Roy recovered from his special organic ice form to his normal human form and returned to his residence from the uninhabited forest in the suburbs. The teleportation speed is quite good, much faster than expected. After using water molecules to teleport back to the living room of his residence, Roy nodded with satisfaction. Although he did not test the time and distance in detail, he was sure of one thing, that is, the Iceman's water molecule teleportation was much more useful than the Ghost's teleportation. On the one hand, the transmission distance has been significantly increased. On the other hand, the speed at which water molecules teleport is no slower than that of Ghost's. If there is anything wrong with it, it is that the steps for teleporting water molecules are much more complicated. The first step is to use the ability to transform water molecules to transform the body into an elemental form. Then the body is disassembled and reassembled at the destination. Finally, it transforms from an elemental state back to its normal form. The feeling Roy got from the teleportation of water molecules was similar to the particle teleportation in Star Trek, where the body was decomposed at the starting point and reassembled at the destination. The only difference is that one uses technological means to decompose the body into particles and reassemble it, while the other uses superpowers to decompose the body into water molecules and reassemble it. Please read, vote, and comment. End of this chapter. Chapter 56, Public Identity. Chapter 56, Public Identity, Seeking Follow-up Reading. Night. After playing cards with Mary Jane, Roy got up and went to the bathroom to take a quick shower. Then, he returned to his bedroom, took out a set of clean clothes and put them on. "Where are you going?" Mary Jane, with a flushed face, lay on her side on the bed and asked Roy. "I have something to go out for. You go to sleep first and don't have to wait for me," Roy replied. "Uh-huh." Mary Jane nodded without further questioning. After putting on the clothes, Roy used the Ghost's teleportation to leave the bedroom and disappeared from Mary Jane's sight. Although the SSR-level Iceman card gave him the superpower of water molecule teleportation, he still preferred to use the Ghost's teleportation ability when teleporting over short distances. In any case, Ghost teleportation is much simpler and does not involve so many steps. After teleporting out of the bedroom, Roy appeared on the rooftop of his residence. The moonlight is very good tonight. The bright full moon hangs high in the night sky, the stars are sparse, and the cool night breeze blows gently. Roy didn't care about the moonlight tonight. He said to the graceful figure in front of him, "If you need anything from me, you can call me directly. I don't really like being spied on." The graceful figure standing in front of him was none other than Gwen, who was wearing a tight black and white uniform that perfectly showed off her seductive curves. Over half an hour ago, when Roy was playing an exciting card game with Mary Jane, he sensed Gwen's arrival. Not only that, he also found Gwen hanging upside down outside the window, peeping for more than 10 or 20 minutes. From Gwen's perspective, she was being careful. She didn't make any sound and was very careful to avoid being detected by Roy's spider sense. But she would never have imagined that Roy's spider sense range was much larger than she thought. Take a simple example. If her and Peter's spider sense range is 10 meters, then Roy's spider sense range is more than 100 meters, more than 10 times theirs. My phone is dead. Besides, I don't have the hobby of spying on other people doing that kind of thing. Gwen replied quickly. Although she didn't take off her hood, Roy knew that a shy blush had appeared on her delicate, fair face. My pulse and heartbeat quickened, I began to sweat, and I unconsciously lowered my head slightly to avoid his gaze. These are physiological reactions that occur when you are shy. More importantly, Gwen's facial temperature rose. Before he obtained the Iceman card, he had no way of sensing such subtle temperature changes. Now, no matter how small the temperature change is, he can easily sense it. That's good. Voyeurism is a psychological disorder. If you have it, you must seek treatment as soon as possible to avoid yourself from unknowingly becoming a pervert who likes to peek at other people. Roy said seriously. Of course he knew that Gwen was not a voyeur, but that didn't stop him from teasing Gwen. Hearing his words, Gwen immediately replied, "I just didn't expect you to do that kind of thing. I don't have voyeurism, and I'm not a pervert." "Is it? Then why did you look out the window for so long?" Roy continued. Gwen was suddenly speechless and didn't know what to say for a moment. Seeing her standing there at a loss, Roy smiled and said, "I'm not kidding you. What on earth do you want to see me so late at night?" Gwen took a deep breath and calmed herself down. Then, he said to Roy, "I secretly went to Harry's house tonight and found out that Norman told Harry that you are a superhuman. Not only that, he also lured Harry into injecting a physical enhancement potion, wanting Harry to become like him." After finishing tonight's heroic activities, she suddenly had the urge to see what happened to Norman Osborn. When she arrived at Norman's penthouse, she saw Norman lying on the bed and calling Harry into the room. He told Harry that Roy was a superhuman and that he was the Green Goblin. "I told him to do it. No need to make a fuss," Roy replied calmly. "What?" Gwen looked at Roy in confusion. After a few seconds, she continued, "Why did you do this?" "It's simple. To completely control the Osborn group. Besides that, I plan to make Harry my subordinate as well. Only one para-human subordinate is too few," Roy said slowly. Although Norman has now been convinced by his fists, Norman is still an unstable factor. You never know when Norman will betray him, driven by his evil personality. In order to continue to secretly control the Osborn group after Norman's death, he felt that he needed to make some preparations in advance. For example, letting Harry know the truth and become the second-generation Green Goblin. As long as Harry becomes the second-generation Green Goblin, Norman will no longer be the only pawn he uses to control the Osborn group. As for how to make Harry obedient after Norman's death, he also had a corresponding plan. Gwen immediately frowned when she heard his answer. Just as she was about to say something else, Roy continued, "By the way, I will announce to the public that I am the Blood Angel in a while." "Why do you want to make it public? Don't you want to be a superhero?" Gwen asked quickly. "Coming out doesn't mean I have to be a superhero. Those are two completely different things." As for why I want to reveal my identity, you will know when the time comes. Roy said slowly. He had not originally planned to reveal his identity so soon, but after drawing the Iceman card, he changed his mind. So after you reveal your identity, do we need to reduce contact? Gwen asked. Of course not. My revealing my identity won't expose you as Spider-Woman. At most, some media will try to interview or follow you. But this shouldn't be a big problem for you. Roy said slowly. Uh-huh. Gwen nodded. I still have some personal matters to take care of. If you don't have anything else to do, please go back to school. Roy continued. It is good. Gwen didn't ask him what personal business he was going to take care of. She immediately left the roof and soon disappeared from his sight. After watching Gwen leave, Roy performed water molecule teleportation without any hesitation. In just a moment, he completed the transformation of water molecules, turning his body into an organic ice form, and completed the decomposition of his body, turning into water molecules and disappearing. Washington, D.C. Located in an upscale community near Virginia. John Garrett, now one of the deputy directors of the CIA, is browsing the CIA's confidential documents in his study. As the deputy director in charge of the operations department, his work is relatively busier than other deputy directors. Take the present for example. What he was browsing now was a confidential operation document that was to be carried out after daybreak. Before going to bed, he planned to review the entire action plan to make sure there were no problems with any aspect of it. At this moment, a lifelike Iceman, like an ice sculpture, suddenly appeared out of thin air in the study. Without any hesitation, John Garrett immediately opened the drawer of the desk and took out a pistol from it. However, before he could raise his pistol, he felt an extreme low temperature. His right hand and pistol were instantly frozen, firmly wrapped in cold and solid ice. At the same time, the ice sculpture like Iceman turned into a normal human being under his gaze. Roy Chen. When Roy returned to normal from his Iceman form, John Garrett recognized him immediately. Still working so late, Deputy Director Garrett is truly a role model for the CIA. Roy said as he came and sat down in front of John Garrett. After 5 or 6 hours of in-depth investigation, Sky successfully found John Garrett's residence. After receiving the message from Sky, he had the idea of coming over to visit John Garrett tonight. P.S. Thanks to Dafendi for the 100 starting coins reward, thank you for your support. End of this chapter. Chapter 57 Don't set a flag easily. Chapter 57 Don't set a flag easily, please read. After finding out that the person coming was Roy, John Garrett knew that he was probably in danger tonight. Although he had rich combat experience, he still didn't think he would be Roy's opponent. However, he did not intend to sit still and wait for death. Who are you exactly? Do you know what the consequences of attacking the deputy director of the CIA are? Garrett endured the pain from the frostbitten right hand and spoke quickly, as if he had no idea who Roy was. Keep on acting. Let me see how good of an acting skill you have as a member of Hydra. Roy said slowly. As soon as he finished speaking, Garrett's expression turned gloomy. After a few seconds of silence, Garrett continued, since you already know that I'm from Hydra, then do it. It was indeed a mistake for us to act rashly against your parents. But Hydra will never be destroyed in your hands. Cut off a head and 2 new ones will grow. No one can completely destroy Hydra. Not Captain America and S.H.I.E.L.D., and not you either. After saying that, Garrett looked at Roy calmly, as if he was ready to kill or chop him up as he pleased. You definitely won't survive, but you won't die tonight either. Killing you now would be too easy for you. As soon as he finished speaking, Garrett, who was sitting opposite Roy, was completely frozen. After completely freezing Garrett, Roy stood up and walked to the computer, took out a USB flash drive from the system space, and inserted it into the computer host. Then, he took out the phone from the system space and dialed Sky's number. Not long after, the call was connected and Sky's voice came from the other end of the phone. What happened? Sky asked immediately. Although it was almost early morning, Sky, as a night owl, not only did not sleep, but was also more energetic than during the day. I inserted the hacker USB drive you gave me earlier into John Garrett's mainframe computer. Roy said slowly. Okay, I will hack into the CIA database through his host now. After saying that, Sky immediately hung up the phone. When she sent Garrett's address to Roy, she guessed that Roy would definitely go to find Garrett. However, she didn't expect Roy to move so quickly. Under Roy's gaze, pop-up windows popped up one after another on the computer screen, and line after line of code continued to appear in the pop-up windows. It goes without saying that Sky was remotely controlling Garrett's computer to hack into the CIA database. After just a few seconds, Roy's eyes moved away from the computer screen and fell on Garrett. Because he was frozen instantly, Garrett's face still maintained a final expression of surprise. Without any hesitation, he put the huge block of ice that wrapped Garrett into the system space. The system space has the limitation of not being able to accommodate living things. But he found a way to break this limitation. As long as the living things are completely frozen, they can be stored in the system space. He had tested it this afternoon in a forest outside New York City, and it worked. Not only that, after taking out the frozen target, you only need to use the Iceman's superpowers to thaw it and revive the target intact. Putting aside the superpower part, the process of freezing and thawing to revive the target is the same as the cryonics technology, which is still in the experimental stage. In other words, this is human cryonics achieved using the Iceman's superpowers. After storing the huge block of ice that froze Garrett into the system space, Roy waited patiently. Before long, there was only one pop-up window left on the computer screen. The scrolling code in the pop-up window also disappeared, leaving only one line of text. Nailed it. After seeing this line of words, Roy pulled out the hacker USB drive from the host, threw it into the system space, and decisively performed water molecule teleportation, disappearing in an instant. The Queen. Roy didn't go anywhere else and went straight back to his residence. Noon the next day. Hellfire Detective Agency. All the information you want is in there. Sky handed the tablet in his hand to Roy and spoke slowly. Okay, hard work. Roy took the tablet from Sky and quickly browsed through it. After hacking into the CIA database, Sky easily found Grant Ward's detailed information. Except for Daniel Whitehall's information, she has found all the Hydra members that Roy asked her to look for yesterday. Soon, Roy finished browsing the information Sky had collected and said to her, "After we deal with Hydra, I will take you to find your parents." After hearing his words, Sky immediately frowned and replied seriously, "Don't set a flag easily. I'm not setting a goal here. You can consider this as a reward for your recent hard work," Roy said with a smile. That being said, Sky still felt that Roy's behavior was not very good. Just when she was about to say something, Roy continued, "By the way, do me one more thing. Using the Blood Angel's name, send an invitation letter to all major media outlets in New York, inviting them to attend the press conference in Times Square in 3 days. The content of the press conference is that the Blood Angels reveal their true identities." Press conference? Sky looked at Roy in confusion. Although she knew early on that Roy was the Blood Angel, she did not expect that Roy would actually hold a press conference to reveal his identity. After a few seconds of silence, she slowly said, "Okay, leave it to me. I will let all the media in New York know about this." "Well, thank you for your hard work." Roy nodded. When Sky left the office, Roy pulled out his phone and sent Mary Jane a message, telling her he would be gone for a few days. Then, he threw the mobile phone into the system space, performed water molecule teleportation, and left the office. Not long after he left the agency, major media outlets in New York received invitations from Sky in the name of Blood Angels. That night, The news that the Blood Angels would hold a press conference in Times Square 3 days later to reveal their true identities was reported on the evening news of all major media outlets. Washington, D.C. Inside a conference room in the Triskelion building at SHIELD headquarters. Roy Chen is about to reveal that he is a Blood Angel. What do you think? Nick Fury, the Damned One, scanned the 5 people in the conference room, including Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Agent Hill, and Agent Coulson, with his only right eye, and said slowly, "This is nothing strange. Given his personality, it's only a matter of time before he reveals that he is a Blood Angel." Coulson was the first to reply. "My intuition tells me that the press conference 3 days later will definitely not be that simple. If he just wanted to announce to the public that he is a Blood Angel, there is no need to make it so complicated. All he needs to do is conjure up wings and fly around downtown New York City a few times." They held a press conference on purpose, and even chose Times Square as the venue. It was definitely not just for the purpose of publicizing their identity. Black Widow said slowly. Among the 6 people present, she was the one who knew Roy best. On the one hand, it was because she had the most contact with Roy. On the other hand, their communication is the most in-depth and they can be said to know each other very well. As soon as she finished speaking, Hawkeye's voice rang out. "I agree with Natasha. Revealing his identity is definitely not his only purpose." After hearing what Hawkeye said, Nick Fury said slowly, "At noon today, agents from the intelligence department got a piece of information from the CIA. John Garrett, the CIA's deputy director of operations, mysteriously disappeared from his home last night. On top of that, someone used his access to hack into a classified CIA database last night. After investigation by the CIA's Information Division, the source of the intrusion was the computer in John Garrett's study. The other party's method was very clever. It took less than 3 minutes to crack the database's multiple information authentication, and did not leave any traceable clues. It is not clear how much classified information was stolen from the CIA database." After Nick Fury finished speaking, Agent Hill continued, "After Roy Chen opened the Hellfire Detective Agency on Madison Avenue in Manhattan, he hired a female assistant. Skye, female, 18 years old. She used to be a member of the hacker group Rising Tide. In other words, she was one of the top hackers in the Rising Tide. She had tried to hack into the SHIELD database many times, causing a lot of trouble to her colleagues in the information department. Do you suspect Roy has anything to do with John Garrett's disappearance?" Black Widow said with a frown. "Seeking follow-up reading, monthly tickets, and recommendation tickets." End of this chapter. Chapter 58 Six-Winged Seraph. Chapter 58 Six-Winged Seraph, Seeking Follow-Up Reading. Yes, we suspect that John Garrett's disappearance and the hacking of the CIA database were caused by him and Skye. Nick Fury replied without any hesitation. "What's the reason?" Although John Garrett is one of the deputy directors of the CIA, many people could have kidnapped him without alerting others. If nothing else, we here are more than capable of doing this. Isn't it too arbitrary to suspect him of kidnapping John Garrett without sufficient evidence?" Black Widow said quickly. After hearing her words, except for Captain America Rogers, Nick Fury, Agent Hill, and others all frowned slightly and looked at her thoughtfully. After noticing that everyone's eyes were on her, Black Widow reacted quickly. Just as she was about to say something else, Nick Fury looked at her and said, "Agent Romanoff, when did you care so much about him?" "It's not that I'm concerned about him, I just think we can't rush to suspect him of being the one who kidnapped John Garrett just because he has a bad relationship with SHIELD. It's not fair to him, and it will further deteriorate his relationship with SHIELD." Black Widow looked at Nick Fury and the other 4 calmly and spoke slowly. Although her tone and expression were calm, the explanation she gave was also reasonable. But except for Captain America, everyone else present was an experienced agent and would not be fooled by her just a few words. She had contacted Roy privately. Nick Fury, Agent Hill, and the other two came to this conclusion at the same time. Agent Hill looked at Black Widow seriously and said, "We suspect him not because he has a bad relationship with S.H.I.E.L.D., but because we have other evidence. Hydra can establish secret bases in various states. Not only does it require a large amount of manpower and material resources, but it also requires someone to help them with various cover-ups. More than a month ago, Fury and I began secretly investigating government officials who might have provided assistance to Hydra, as well as Hydra spies who might be lurking within the government. After investigation, we found that John Garrett was a serious suspect. Although we don't have any concrete evidence yet, the possibility that John Garrett is a member of Hydra is as high as 80%. We were planning to investigate him further, but unexpectedly, he disappeared mysteriously from his home last night. In addition to this, the intelligence department hacked into Mary Jane's phone today and found that Roy sent her a message that he would be leaving New York for a few days. Combining all of the above, we have sufficient reason to suspect that John Garrett's disappearance and the hacking of the CIA database were done by him and Sky. If nothing unexpected happens, the reason why he has to leave New York for a few days is to capture other Hydra members." After Agent Hill finished speaking, Nick Fury glanced at everyone and said slowly, "No matter what Roy Chen plans to do at the press conference 3 days later, or what he is going to do after leaving New York, we can't just sit back and watch. Agent Barton and Agent Coulson, please go to Langley, the CIA headquarters. I will ask the President for authorization for S.H.I.E.L.D. to cooperate with the CIA in investigating John Garrett's disappearance. Agents Romanoff and Hill will go to New York to keep a close eye on everyone related to Roy, and will attend the press conference 3 days later on behalf of S.H.I.E.L.D. As for you, the Captain, I will give you permission to form a special operations team with Roy Chen as the imaginary enemy. No matter what kind of personnel, equipment, or logistical support you need, I will have everyone fully cooperate with you." After assigning tasks to everyone, Nick Fury said nothing more and turned and left the meeting room. 3 days is neither long nor short. Before we knew it, it was time for the Blood Angels press conference. A temporary press conference venue has been set up on the triangular open space in front of New York's Times Square. The layout of the press conference was very simple. At the front is a temporary platform and podium. There were hundreds of chairs placed in front of the podium. Sky was in charge of notifying the major New York media, while Kingpin was in charge of handling matters at the press conference. If possible, King did not intend to participate in Roy's press conference. But after receiving a call from Roy, he finally agreed to Roy's request despite being reluctant. In order to prevent the release from causing unnecessary casualties and riots, except for Jin Bing, the New York police and city government had no choice but to cooperate with Kingpin, temporarily closing the surrounding roads and sending a large number of police to Times Square to maintain order. Although only major media outlets in New York received the invitation, it was not just reporters and photographers from these media outlets who came to Times Square. A large number of onlookers gathered on the streets on both sides of Times Square. In addition to these onlookers, Peter and Gwen, wearing Spider-Man uniforms, also came to the rooftop of a nearby building. Unlike Gwen who came alone, Peter, who was wearing a black uniform, also brought his black girlfriend Liz. At this time, Peter was sitting on the edge of the roof of the building, holding Liz's slender waist, looking down at the people in the square. It can be said like this. Except for Roy, the protagonist of the press conference, everyone else who should or shouldn't have come had arrived. Time passes little by little. The reporters sitting in front of the podium looked at the countdown on the screen from time to time and instructed the photographers accompanying them to take the pictures they needed. There's still 1 minute left. We'll soon know whether this press conference is just a public identity announcement. Agent Hill, who was wearing casual clothes and squeezed in with the crowd, spoke to Black Widow beside him. Has the intelligence department discovered his whereabouts in the past few days? Black Widow asked Agent Hill. No. Agent Hill replied helplessly. Although SHIELD has an extremely large and complete intelligence network, it is still very difficult to track down Roy's whereabouts. Just as the countdown on the stage screen was about to end, a cry of surprise suddenly came from the crowd. "Here they come, the Blood Angels are coming!" The exclaiming onlookers raised their right hands, pointed at a figure in the distant sky and spoke loudly. After hearing his voice, people looked up at the sky. How could it be 6 wings? Don't Blood Angels only have a pair of white wings? This is how the same thing? Has he evolved? After seeing the figure flying towards the stage at high speed in the sky, questions flashed through the minds of the onlookers one after another. Not only them, but also Skye, Gwen, Black Widow, Peter, Agent Hill, and others who had known that Roy was the Blood Angel showed surprised expressions. Roy, who originally had only a pair of white wings, now has 3 pairs of wings behind him. Not only that, the original white wings turned into ice wings that looked like gorgeous ice sculptures. After seeing the 3 pairs of ice wings behind Roy, a word flashed through everyone's mind. Seraph. The highest level of angel in mythology and legends, the closest to God, known as the 6-winged seraphim of the divine class. P.S. Thank you for the 100 starting coins reward from. Thank you for your support. End of this chapter. Chapter 59, Ancestors. Chapter 59, Ancestors, seeking follow-up reading. In the past 3 days, in addition to using the intelligence collected by Skye to capture Hydra members such as Grant Ward and Brock Rumlow, Roy also did not give up on developing Iceman's superpowers. The 3 pairs of ice wings behind him are one of the new abilities he has developed in the past few days. To be more precise, it is a new skill that combines the superpowers of the Iceman and the Angel. At the beginning, he just used the Iceman's water molecule conversion ability to transform the Angel's white wings into ice wings. Although his wings of flesh and blood turned into ice wings that looked like ice sculptures, this not only did not affect his flight, but also increased his flying speed a lot. Compared with the white wings made of flesh and blood, the ice wings formed by the conversion ability of water molecules are obviously much stronger. The ice feather wings not only grant him a faster flying speed and a higher flying altitude, but the ice feathers of the ice feather wings can also be launched like the steel feathers of the Archangel. After discovering this, Roy increased the original pair of ice wings to 3 pairs, making his image closer to the 6-winged seraphim in mythology. The increase in the number of wings further improved his flying speed and altitude. The original white wings gave him a flying speed of 500 km per hour and a maximum flying altitude of 10,000 meters. After transforming into ice wings, his flying speed increased to 850 km per hour and his flying altitude also increased to 15,000 meters. After increasing the ice wings from 1 pair to 3 pairs, his maximum flying speed reached Mach 1.3, or 1,600 km per hour. As for the flight altitude, it can fly up to an altitude of 30,000 meters. Under the gaze of the crowd, Roy, who had 3 pairs of ice wings and looked like a seraph, quickly arrived above the stage. Then, it landed on the stage steadily and lightly like a fallen leaf. After landing, Roy immediately removed the 3 pairs of ice wings behind him, walked to the podium with a calm face, adjusted the microphone, and slowly said, "Sorry to have kept you waiting. Let's not be polite. The Blood Angel you are talking about is me. You should have already got the answer to this question. Let me introduce myself briefly. My name is Roy Chen, I'm 18 years old, and I just graduated from Midtown High School a few months ago. I was responsible for the lizard monster at Coney Island, the mass deaths of gang leaders in Hell's Kitchen, and the destruction of Hydra bases in various states. As for why I attacked Hydra crazily, the reason is simple, because they killed my parents." The photographers in the audience were pressing shutter buttons frantically and flashes were lighting up continuously. Roy's remarks were broadcast live simultaneously to major television stations and websites by cameras of major media outlets and mobile phones of onlookers. Without any suspense, the hot search Roy Chen is a blood angel immediately appeared on major social media and websites. When Roy finished speaking, a blonde female reporter who was sitting in the front row, wearing a grey women's suit and short skirt, with her round and slender legs crossed, immediately raised her right hand. Blonde, big waves, professional temptation. Roy raised his right hand and gestured to the blonde reporter, then said, "Go ahead." "Hello, Mr. Chen. I am Anna, a reporter from the New York Times. I would like to ask whether the actions you mentioned have been authorized by the official level. If not, can I assume that these private actions of yours violate American law? Or did you just admit in front of everyone that you are the murderer?" As expected of a New York Times reporter, Roy sighed in his heart. Although the person asking the question now was Anna, the other reporters present and the onlookers around all had the same question. Under the gaze of the crowd, Roy said slowly, "Everything I did was my personal decision. I did not get any official authorization." His answer made the flashing lights, which had never stopped flashing, flash even more frequently. The reporters in the audience and the onlookers around also began to whisper to each other. At this point, Roy continued, "I did kill someone, but I don't think I broke any laws. To put it bluntly, I do not recognize American laws, and I do not think American laws can punish me. Because these laws are used by the American government to maintain its rule and manage ordinary people like you. I will not accept management from any official or organization. Not before, not now, and certainly not in the future." As soon as these words came out, the conversation at the scene became more intense, and the order at the scene began to become chaotic. Many American rednecks even cursed at Roy. "Mr. Chen, are you planning to commit treason?" Anna raised her right hand again and asked again. "Treason? I don't even recognize America as my motherland, so how can it be considered treason? I am an immigrant, no. I should be considered a stateless person now." Roy took out his original green card, driver's license, and passport from the system space and injected energy into them. Then, he threw them into the air. Bang, bang, bang. The green card, driver's license, and passport that were thrown into the air suddenly exploded like fireworks and disappeared completely, leaving nothing behind. Without waiting for Anna and other reporters to continue asking questions, Roy slowly raised his right hand and snapped his fingers. Along with the sound of finger snaps, human heads frozen in ice fell from the sky and landed on the stage like raindrops. At first, people didn't know what was inside the ice. When they saw a human head inside with the last expression on its face before death, everyone couldn't help but gasp. People with poor tolerance immediately had strong feelings of nausea and thoughts of vomiting. Roy ignored the shock and discomfort of the crowd and said calmly, "In the past 3 days, I killed 233 Hydra members who were lurking in the government and the military in various identities. These include, but are not limited to, the Deputy Secretary of the CIA, state legislators, heads of the Department of Homeland Security, CIA agents, officers of the Navy and Air Force, and government employees of various states, among others. I will have someone publish their specific identities online later. There is a saying among flower growers, the hatred for one's parents is irreconcilable. From today on, I will travel around the world to hunt down Hydra members until Hydra becomes a thing of the past. Any country, organization, or individual that shelters or provides assistance to Hydra will be regarded by me as an accomplice of Hydra. Don't get in my way, and don't mess with me. This is my last reminder." As soon as Roy finished speaking, a redneck in his early 40s broke through the police cordon, came to the front of the stage, and cursed at him. "What can I do if I provoke you? You are a bastard, an ungrateful bastard. Go back to your hometown, America doesn't welcome you." Before the other party could finish his words, Roy's eyes sparkled with ruby-like light. After seeing this scene, Black Widow and Agent Hill, who were standing in the crowd, immediately had a bad premonition. "No way! He shouldn't do that. It's live streaming now. As the crowd watched, Roy's eyes emitted two laser-like impact beams. Bang! The impact beam shining with ruby light hit Redneck's head accurately, causing Redneck's head to explode like a watermelon falling from a high altitude. This is what happens when you mess with me. If I hear you say one more curse word, I'll shoot your head off. Roy glanced at the rednecks who had just yelled at him and said with a cold expression. The originally noisy press conference scene suddenly became extremely quiet. After expressing his attitude with the actions of his ancestors, Roy slowly used the superpowers of an angel and an Iceman, generated 3 pairs of ice wings behind him, and soared into the air. Bang! There was a huge sonic boom in the sky. Roy flapped his icy wings and disappeared from everyone's sight in the blink of an eye. P.S. Thank you for the 100 starting coins reward from. Thank you for your support. End of this chapter. Chapter 60, Reactions from all parties. Chapter 60, Reactions from all parties, please read later. Washington, D.C. The director's office in the Triskelion building at SHIELD headquarters. Nick Fury, the damned man, who was sitting on the sofa in the reception area, turned off the TV with a grim expression. Although he did not go to the press conference in person, he would not forget that today was the day Roy held a press conference. After knowing that Roy was going to hold a press conference in Times Square in New York, he had a bad feeling. As it turned out, his premonition came true. Roy's purpose in holding a press conference was indeed not just to reveal his identity. Roy's real purpose is to establish his authority. Although Nick Fury knew before that Roy did not take SHIELD and the American government seriously, he did not expect Roy to be so thorough. He would not be too surprised if Roy simply publicly declared at a press conference that he did not approve of the American government. In America there are at least 80,000 anarchists, if not 100,000. One more Roy is no big deal. Although Roy is a superhuman, and a superhuman with good strength, this is not a particularly troublesome thing. Whether it is S.H.I.E.L.D. or the American government, they have enough ability to resolve the series of impacts brought about by Roy's disapproval of the American government. But the problem is that Roy not only publicly declared that he did not recognize the American government, but also did something else. He killed 233 Hydra members lurking in the official and military circles, and brought their heads to the scene and displayed them directly. Not only that, he also shot a redneck in the head with a blast beam after he verbally insulted him, in front of everyone present and the live broadcast audience. When these two things are put together, it's not so easy to deal with. First of all, there are Hydra members lurking in the government and the military. Roy brought their heads to the scene and told them their positions. It goes without saying how the public would react when he announced the specific identities and positions of these Hydra members. A villain organization that has been promoted by the U.S. government as a military achievement for decades now has a large number of members lurking in the U.S. government and military systems. Not only that, many people have climbed to high positions. Although the American officials were not aware of this before, the people don't care so much. There will only be two reactions of the public after knowing this. The first is that I feel I have been deceived by the authorities. The second is the realization of official incompetence. In keeping with the American people's usual style, all kinds of marches and protests will inevitably follow. This matter alone is troublesome enough for SHIELD and the American government. However, that's not all. If a large number of Hydra members are lurking in the official and military systems, it will only affect the credibility of the official and military systems and bring about protest marches. Then Roy killed a redneck with a shock beam in front of everyone at the scene and the live broadcast audience, which was equivalent to stomping hard on the face of the authorities and the military. I will kill anyone who provokes me. If you are not afraid of death, come over here. Although Roy did not say these words directly, his meaning was very clear. However, this is not what Nick Fury cares about most. What Nick Fury cares about most now is that Roy has become stronger. If before, he still felt that as long as S.H.I.E.L.D. was well prepared and made a suitable plan, there was still a possibility of successfully capturing or killing Roy. Now, he felt that the possibility of S.H.I.E.L.D. successfully capturing and killing Roy was less than 5%. Even if S.H.I.E.L.D. tries its best at all costs, the probability of success will not exceed 10%. As for why, the reason is simple, because Roy just demonstrated two very tricky abilities. Fly at supersonic speeds, and use your eyes to release energy attacks. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. knew early on that he had many superpowers, such as super self-healing, alloy bone claws, flight, teleportation, super strength, etc. But Roy has never demonstrated his superpowers of supersonic flight and energy attacks with his eyes before. If only that woman were still on Earth. A name popped up unconsciously in Nick Fury's mind. Los Angeles. Tony Stark's clifftop mansion. Jarvis, simulate the results of the battle between Mark II and Roy Chen. Tony, who had just finished watching Roy's press conference, said to Jarvis. Okay, sir. Jarvis' unique synthetic voice sounded immediately. In less than a minute, Jarvis simulated the fight between Mark II and Roy. Sir, Mark II's success rate in defeating Roy Chen is only 3.26%. 3.26%? How can it be so low? After hearing Jarvis' answer, Tony immediately frowned and said quickly, use the data of Mark III to simulate it again. No, add the weapons I envisioned to Mark III and simulate it again. Just like before, Jarvis quickly simulated the outcome of the battle. With its weapon system fully upgraded, the Mark III has a 3% chance of defeating Roy Chen. 7.51%? Even with those weapons, the Mark III would have less than a 3% success rate? Tony's frown deepened. After a few seconds of silence, he continued, build a steel armor plan with Roy Chen as the imaginary enemy. The plan is code-named Anti-Roy Armor. Okay, sir. Jarvis replied immediately. Suburbs of Paris, France. Inside the study of the Malik family estate. Gideon Malik, one of the leaders of Hydra, said to his daughter Stephanie Malik, who was sitting in front of him, contact the others. We must hold the ceremony again and welcome them back to the Hive to fight Roy Chen as soon as possible. They may not agree, as it has been less than a year since the last ceremony. Stephanie, who was wearing a black women's suit, said with a frown. They have to agree, otherwise, all of us will die at the hands of a madman like Roy Chen. Gideon said seriously. Okay, I'll contact them right away. After saying that, Stephanie got up and left the study. Mexico City, the capital of Mexico. Daniel Whitehall, who looked extremely gentle in a well-tailored suit and gold-rimmed glasses, said to a large man standing in front of him, I told them long ago not to mess with superhumans that they don't understand. Even if you want to do it, you must be absolutely sure before you do it. Try to find out if Roy Chen has any connection with the Inhumans. If he is also an Inhuman, then we may be able to get rid of him. Yes, sir. The big man standing in front of Whitehall replied quickly. Himalayas. The Inhumans retreat, afterlife. Jia Ying, who had just finished watching Roy's press conference, said to Gordon beside her, although he is not one of us, he will be a good ally. Find a way to find him. It is good. Gordon, who was wearing black sunglasses and had lost his eyes due to awakening his superpowers, replied quickly. Brazil. Rio de Janeiro. After finishing his morning work, Banner, wearing old clothes and a baseball cap, came to a snack bar near the factory. He ate his lunch while watching the news on TV. Roy Chen? Did he also awaken his superpowers by accident? Will the military hunt him down like they did me? If the military sits back and does nothing, can I go back too? Thinking of this, a name that had been haunting Banner immediately flashed through his mind. Betty Ross. After Roy left the press conference, heated discussions immediately broke out on the internet, and countless netizens began various discussions. Some people support it, some condemn it, and some just want to watch the fun and add fuel to the fire. Manhattan, New York. Gwen, wearing a Spider-Woman uniform, quickly returned to school swinging on spider webs. Just then, her cell phone rang. End of this chapter. Like and subscribe.